most feared clan is being invaded, something that until that day everyone believed it was impossible. They sent a group of warriors to the invaders' location, but when they arrived they found nothing. When suddenly one of them drops to the ground with a needle in his neck. The others went on high alert, searching for where the attack came from. When one of them looks up and spots a rain of needles falling on them, taking down the entire group all at once with just one attack. The clan leaders found out and gathered everyone else to go after the invaders. Arriving at the location, one of the leaders noticed something was off, but it was already too late. Everyone around him was already out cold without even knowing it. The leader starts wondering what kind of clan this is that's destroying them so easily. But it wasn't an army, it was just one kid who did all of this. Everest's hair can't believe that this boy did all of this alone. Now that he found the enemy, he's determined to avenge everyone from his clan who fell. He takes a deep breath and charges at the boy at an insane speed. The invader waited for the punch to arrive and blocked it without moving an inch, and even laughed, asking if that's the max power of the clan leader. He decides to show what real power looks like. With his eyes closed, the boy unleashed an insane aura in the shape of a dragon. The clan leader basically pooped himself and thinks about running, but it was too late and ended up turning to ashes. This is Tang Yumiang, and he became this monster after being used as a punching bag by the boys of his clan when he was 12 years old. All because his mother, known as the Poison Phoenix, attracted the demon lord to the village of the Tang clan, and they were attacked. The clan managed to win the war, but all the blame was put on him. Every night, Yumiang came home covered in bruises. His mother couldn't bear to watch her son suffer for the mistake she made, but the boy was willing to endure everything to keep his mother safe. He was going through all of this alone because his father couldn't take it anymore and took his own life, so now it was only him left to protect his mother. The next day, he received his special massage from the same boys again. A psycho girl shows up with a bunch of needles, and they decide to start torturing Yumiang. Youngyang shoves multiple needles into him, injecting poison into his body. The pain was unbearable. It felt like he was burning from the inside. After hours of torture, they all left and abandoned him there. He knew he couldn't close his eyes because he was terrified of never seeing his mother again. He was almost ready to give up on everything, until a sword appeared right in front of him. He didn't understand it at first, but when he stood up and touched the sword, an insane energy was released. What happened is that this sword is actually his, from a past life. The moment he touched it, he remembered everything. He was a master swordsman who, after 100 years of fighting, reached the absolute peak of the sword arts. Now the sword had returned, bringing all the knowledge from before. The next day, as he was leaving home, his mother was scared he would get beaten up again, but he turned to her and said to relax, because this time it was going to be different. The boys were waiting in the same spot for him to walk by to collect their daily fees. This time Yumiang shows up different, with a confident look on his face. The boys walked up to him, and one of them tried to throw a punch, but the protagonist grabbed him by the face and smashed his head into the ground. The other two were confused, trying to figure out where that strength came from. Even so, they didn't back down and came at the boy with a knife. Yumiang grabbed him by the hand and with a piercing stare snapped the boy's hand just by holding it, and he wasn't done there. In a council of elders, they were discussing the clan leader's trial, when the MC walked through the front door dragging one of the trial participants behind him and saying he wanted to enter the competition. The elders were furious because he had injured other competitors, but Yumiang knew the rules and fights between participants were not forbidden. The other two were out in the courtyard, taking a nap with their eyes open. He said he was simply following the Tang family rule: kindness is repaid double, revenge is repaid tenfold. All the elders wanted to execute the boy, saying what he did was a crime. One of the elders approved him on the condition that if he lost the competition, he would pay with his life. When he got home, his mother was worried because this competition was way too dangerous, but Yunxing smiled and said he was the son of the Poison Phoenix. That was enough to make her burst into tears and squeeze her son tight, saying he had grown up way too fast. Anyone who gets in his way, he will eliminate. 1 month later, the day of the competition arrived, and the MC was fully prepared for this moment. All the participants were gathered at the Dark King Hall and started mocking Yunxing. So he hit one of them with a Bowsy bun, so hard the kid was out cold. Instantly, everyone else got pissed and came at him. When the teacher arrived, everyone was on the floor, while the MC was just chilling and eating. Meanwhile, in the Elders' Hall, they decided to change the format of this year's test. The clan chiefs went to the participants and explained that the plan had changed. This year the test would be one-on-one duels, but since there were several participant casualties because of the earlier chaos, it would now be battle royale style. Everyone would fight each other, and the last one standing would be the new Tang clan leader. Elsewhere in Sichuan, inside the Black Death Alliance's territory, a meeting was being held in the main hall of the Dark Moon Sword Sect. The speaker opened by saying everyone was busy, so he'd be brief. The topic was the Tang family. Someone asked if this was about the young leader competition. Another said the Tang family was in such bad shape that their leader could wipe them out any time if he wished. For now, though, he was leaving them alone because they still had some use. Even so, those children were the Tang family's future, so if something happened to them, it would be a serious blow. Someone in the hall judged the elders' plan favorably. Another said that even weakened, the Tang family was still dangerous, so they shouldn't move openly. But if they simply followed the carriages and cut down the buds the family was trying to raise, that alone wouldn't be a major enough hit. The young leader contest lasted 4 full years. If all those carefully trained children died at the very end, that would cripple the Tang family. A woman asked if they planned to handle it the same way they did with the Jiggle family or the Mwangyodong family. The Dark Moon Sword Sect leader agreed and said, for now, they would only track the carriages. He added that the tracking had already begun. Not only that, they had planted a small seed. If all went well, the Tang family might fall right into their hands. At the mountain chosen for the young leader competition, everyone followed the leader except one boy, who stayed behind for a moment, thinking. They were told that from now on, they would be called by number, not by name. Each team had 4 members, and his was Group 7. As the assigned numbers were read out, they reached number 28 and realized someone was missing. They called for number 28 again, then turned to the boy and asked why he was falling behind. He apologized and said he got lost in thought, but the guide snapped that there was no time for nonsense. The truth was, he stayed back because he felt a presence nearby. Since even the escort didn't notice it, he knew this wasn't some normal Tang guard. They were being followed. When they reached a cliff, they asked if this was the spot. Then a voice came from the cliff, demanding Group 7's password. One of the kids shouted, "Hidden Poison King!" The answer was accepted right away. That shocked the other 3 in the group. A man stepped out, greeted them, and introduced himself as Jiggle Changxin. He said the Tang family once led the way in formations, but after the Demon Lord's invasion, they fell. His own family survived only because of Tang support, so in return, they would keep outsiders from meddling in the competition. He added that the Jiggle family would handle support with formations. Some of them were impressed, since those techniques could affect position in space. The violet-haired girl noticed Tang Yumiang seemed off. Unlike before, he wasn't paying attention to anything. She remembered he had acted the same way in the carriage, back when they were told they'd be together for 3 years. He looked completely uninterested in the others. When it was his turn to speak, he didn't even give his name until they pressed him. The pink-haired girl with glasses introduced herself as Tang Yuri and brought up the fight from earlier. The cheerful boy followed with his own introduction, Tang Aijin, and said it was nice to meet everyone. Then the carriage kept moving. Tang Yuri figured he was acting bold because his great-grandfather was one of the 3 elders, so he might stay safe for the next 4 years. Yumiang cut her off and told her to say what she really meant. Was she blaming him? She answered that the sudden rule change surprised her, but she wasn't pinning it on anyone. Tang Aijin tried to calm things down, saying they were teammates now, but the other boy kept pushing. Watching him, Yumiang recognized the look of someone who'd been trouble since he was little. He let them bicker and just listened, thinking nobody got here easily, not even him. He decided that if this guy caused more problems, he wouldn't ignore it. Then the carriage suddenly stopped. Jiggle was gone. Just a moment ago, he'd been right in front of them, and now he had vanished. Mirio worried they had gotten trapped inside a formation and might not be able to get out. Yumiang was sure that if they just waited there, no one would come save them. The others couldn't understand why he was so calm. They were stuck inside the Phantom Capsule formation, and Jiggle knew escape was impossible without launchers. He thought the Tang elders were cheap, but the offer was too good to ignore. If he got rid of number 28, support for his family would double. And if the contest became unfair, only the Tang family would suffer. The Jiggle family had everything to gain. Then a strange sound came from the formation, a crack opening like a curtain. Changxin panicked when he saw the formation split apart. Yumiang called out and asked what he planned to do after abandoning them. Jiggle claimed their steps had gone out of sync because they were inexperienced, so they needed to be more careful. Still, he stared at that boy suspiciously, because the formation had no weakness to exploit. The others rushed over and asked how he managed to cut through it. Mirio said this wasn't the time to focus on that. They were lucky they had found Instructor Jiggle again, so they should follow him carefully and stop making things worse. But he vanished once more. By then, they understood. Jiggle was running from them inside his own formation because that boy wasn't someone easy to fool. He couldn't believe a 12-year-old had such strong spirit. Then he spotted a light, assumed it was the exit to the training grounds, and hurried off, hoping to leave them behind for good. Once he reached another area, he relaxed. He was sure they couldn't possibly follow him there. Then someone called his name, and he knew this was bad. It was Group 7's official supervisor, Tang Wenjin, asking why he was lying on the ground and whether he was all right. Jiggle quickly asked about Group 7. Where were the participants and what had happened? He told himself to stay calm. He had prepared for this. He said Group 7 probably wouldn't be joining the competition. He had waited a long time, but they never arrived. Maybe bandits or wild beasts got them. Accidents happen. So it seemed the event would have to continue without them. But before he could finish, the formation started breaking again. The supervisor noticed too. Jiggle barely dared to turn around. Pretending to be shocked, he told Wenjin to let him check first, but his formation was already collapsing and he had no time to run. How could the Jiggle family's greatest formation, the 7-locked Ghost Dome formation, be torn open by Yomyang using only a short blade? Now Jiggle would need a very good excuse. Yomyang stepped out with a strange smile and voice and greeted him like he had kept him waiting. The others were stunned. Breaking that formation with a short sword shouldn't have been possible. He explained that he hadn't destroyed the formation, he only opened a gap in it. The supervisor asked if they were Group 7. They said yes and asked who he was, noticing the Tang crest on his hood. He said he had been worried, especially after Jiggle claimed they might have been attacked. Then he glanced at the man responsible and said they had simply gotten lost. Luckily, they marked the entrance to the formation, so finding their way back wasn't hard. He chose not to report Jiggle yet. Since the man worked under Tang orders, he would let it go for now as only a suspicion. But if it came out after the competition that Jiggle had worked with the elders, the entire Jiggle clan would be wiped out. Jiggle apologized for the mistake and said he'd inspect the damaged formation. The supervisor said it had all been a misunderstanding and welcomed them, apologizing for Group 7's rough start to training. He introduced himself as Tang Wenjin of the Banwei Brigade, the man in charge of their training during the competition. Tang Mirio was startled. He had heard that brigade vanished years ago, but the Banwei Brigade was once as strong as a great leader, one of the Tang family's most feared elite forces. Mirio also knew the former clan leader was Yumyang's mother, the Poison Phoenix. Yumyang asked why a man like him wasn't still with the Tang family. Wenjin explained that years ago they fought to protect their master, the Poison Phoenix, against the Celestial Glow Demon Lord, and lost badly. Because they failed, people saw them as sinners. He ended the introductions there and told them to listen closely. The first year of the competition was for self-training. They could practice on their own and would be given scriptures. Tang Yuri asked about the Tang family's lost legendary art, the 10,000 celestial flower rains. Wenjin said that technique was only passed to the one who became clan leader, and even then, it was incomplete. Yumyang knew it was a hidden weapon art that attacked like a storm. It sounded a lot like sword control, so maybe he could copy part of it. Wenjin added that the elders would teach them the core of the 10,000 celestial flower rains little by little, if they could handle it. From now on, their lives would be all training, whether together or alone. Tang Yuri then asked the obvious question: where were they supposed to sleep? He told her, in the forest, unless she expected to train from a soft bed. Comfort wouldn't make them stronger. Right now, learning to survive harsh conditions mattered more. With that, he told them to begin training however they judged best. Yumyang said sleeping in a nice bed was fine, but adapting to the forest seemed pointless. The supervisor didn't like that answer, but since this was the boy who broke the barrier, he decided to test him. The others were unhappy. They thought his attitude was going to drag them into trouble. Wenjin said it was simple. If he passed, he could stay in the mansion inside the formation. If he failed, that was on him. This test was only for participant 28. The team spread out with spears and hidden weapons. His job was to dodge or block everything within 5 steps, and they would begin only after blindfolding him. Once his eyes were covered, they took positions across the area. Mirio thought the whole thing was impossible. Nobody was even moving yet. He guessed they were raising the pressure on purpose, and after a moment, they attacked from every direction to throw him off. But he only counted the weapons passing by. In his head, 147 felt like too many. Then he drew his sword and slipped past them all with ease. It showed more than talent. His timing, balance, speed, and ability to adjust were all absurd. Everyone was stunned. The supervisor realized he wasn't just knocking the weapons away, he was pulling them in. After stopping everything, he removed the blindfold and calmly asked if he had passed. Watching the full path of the weapons and how he handled every one of them, the supervisor was left speechless. Even after being called, he needed a second to snap out of it. Then he simply said the result was final. He declared that the boy had passed and could rest in the mansion. To him, it felt like he'd just seen a monster. Some thought the reward was fair, but others complained it was unfair for one teammate to enjoy comfort alone. Yomyung didn't care at all. He broke into a huge grin and started laughing. Then he said he hoped the mansion served all kinds of food. His teammates were not happy to hear that. The supervisor, though, liked that they hadn't lost their drive. He started thinking that child might really be the chosen one. Yomyung told them his past now meant meat with every meal. Deep in the dark forest, wolves were eating what they had hunted, but there was something off about that prey. Before long, the wolves began to suffer strange side effects. One by one, they dropped until none were left standing. Then the 3 kids surviving in the forest rushed the wolves. They were amazed by Ijin's poison skills. Thanks to her method, they had dinner. Tang Yuri was already drooling over the meat while the other 2 kept talking. About 4 months had passed since they first came here. Since then, they'd been struggling to survive, and the first beast they ran into was a bear. They often couldn't catch anything and had to live on roots. When they finally made a successful hunt, they almost cried. It was rough, but somehow they managed to find shelter too. They guessed Yomyung was probably having an easy time somewhere else. Mirio didn't even want to hear his name, but Ijin was still curious. Mirio guessed he was just wandering the forest alone. Anyway, they'd see him at the mansion sooner or later, and when they did, he'd pay for it. Still, Ijin admitted that if he kept training, he could become much stronger. Then Mirio noticed something was wrong. The meat was gone. Both of them turned and glared at Tang Yuri. She was lying there sick after eating all of it by herself. When she noticed their faces, she told them to move. They were blocking the starlight. Meanwhile, in the mountains of Gangneung, at the Seven Braids training ground. Even at night, Yeomyung was still training. He rested when needed, but once he started, he went all in. Using the warriors there as sparring partners, he pushed himself hard. With the skills he regained from his past life, even armed fighters couldn't stop him. They couldn't read his movements or block his attacks. Eventually, he decided to test a new technique. With ring-shaped shurikens in hand, he was sure it would work. The warriors braced themselves for his next move. Even so, they couldn't track either his motion or the weapons he sent flying. The pattern looked random, but he struck them one after another without missing. By the time they realized they were shurikens, it was already too late. They spun so fast they were nearly invisible. Using that rapid rotation, he unleashed the frenzied spinning dance. The supervisor couldn't believe trained fighters had been taken down in an instant. On top of that, he controlled the attack well enough to only graze their skin. The supervisor asked if this was his own creation, and Yeomyung said yes. Holding up one shuriken, he explained that once someone got caught, escaping would be tough. The supervisor was impressed and asked what he called it. Yeomyung answered, the frenzied spinning dance. Then came another question. Did it use a lot of internal energy, and how was he handling that? That was because he had once asked for a manual on eye techniques. He'd been offered sky-piercing eyes and flowing current eyes, though sky-piercing eyes was the one recommended. But Yeomyung said he had mastered flowing current eyes, leaving the supervisor stunned. That was one of the Tang family's oldest eye arts, and he couldn't imagine how Yeomyung had learned it. The young man explained that even without the full essence, he realized it belonged to higher martial arts. By using flowing current eyes to read weapon paths, he could throw with perfect aim. At that point, the supervisor felt like nothing about that boy could shock him anymore. He told him that in 2 months, the rest of his team would arrive and face the same test under the same rules. They already had the ability, but next time, they'd come prepared. Yeomyung was glad to hear that. He was excited to see how much his friends had grown. The supervisor noticed that concern right away. Then he realized the others were using Yeomyung as motivation for their own training, but he didn't mind. Looking up at the sky, Yeomyung thought about fate. In his past life, the only real bond he had was with his master, the Sword Phantom. Now, no matter where people came from or what they'd done, new ties were forming around him. Maybe this was what a normal life looked like. For some reason, he wanted to see them soon. On their first day, they had all been beginners. Now they had reached a totally different level. And just thinking about meeting him again filled them with excitement. They even talked about splitting his head open. Their eyes made it clear they really liked that idea. The one training them noticed how fired up they were about improving their aim. Even he had no idea what had gotten into them. At the mansion, they were already yelling for Yeomyung, wondering if he'd run away. That would be a shame, since they wanted to smash his head themselves. Mirio commented that Tang Ai-jin had been strangely quiet, so she turned to check on him. Then she saw Yeomyung with an arm around Ai-jin's neck, while Ai-jin just hung there, completely limp. Laughing, he said he'd been hiding to surprise them, and their little revenge plan was pretty funny. Still holding Ai-jin like they were close friends, he asked them to say it again because it sounded cute. Then he looked at the rest of the group and asked why they were just standing there. After all, they'd been talking about crushing his head and showing off 6 months of training. He even asked if he should make the first move. They quickly backed off, saying it was just a joke. What shocked them more was that they hadn't seen him or sensed him at all. Life in the forest had sharpened them, but not enough. Now he had both Ai-jin and Yuri in his arms, while Mirio quietly thought about how wide the gap had become and what he must have gone through. He had gotten taller too, and his face. She suddenly snapped back and blushed, telling herself it was only because she'd spent too long around animals. Yeomyung told her not to feel too down. Even by her own standards, she had grown far stronger. She just couldn't see it because he was standing right there. Everyone agreed. Some things never change. Elsewhere, a meeting was underway. If it really was Jianggu, they said, then 6 months had passed and they still barely saw his face. He cut that off and told them to get to the point. Was there anyone outstanding in the group? Participant number 2 was the first name mentioned. His growth rate was far above the others. It wasn't just a wish to get stronger or stay alive. He seemed driven by fierce hatred towards someone. Still, another person said they couldn't ignore participant number 10, who passed the warrior's test in only 1 month. Numbers 2 and 10 stood out the most, but after seeing number 28, they both seemed ordinary. No one could forget how shocking his escape had been, and later training only made it worse. He showed skills even masters shouldn't be able to use, but trying to bring him in now was dangerous. It looked like he had already noticed their interference. They called on Jianggu, since he seemed worried about something. Asked what it was, he put on a smile and said there was no one special in his group, though maybe they should change the subject. Still, they needed a puppet they could control. He suggested recruiting number 2 and linking him to his niece. Since the boy hit his face because of an injury, winning over someone like that shouldn't be hard. If they helped him win the contest and become the Tang clan's young leader, then tied him to his niece, Jig would officially become part of the Tang family's outer branch. That would give them room to interfere in Tang affairs. It would expand the Tang family's reach and protect their own interests too. In the end, they planned to merge the families. That was why they were backing the Tang clan competition. They decided the meeting had reached a good stopping point. As for number 28, he was too valuable to discard. If he survived the contest, they would try to guide him toward revenge. They even considered taking him in as a son and giving him the position of Jjigae clan leader. Meanwhile, training continued. Their accuracy kept improving. Tang Mirio thought that staying in the mansion had pushed their training even harder. Even if the workload had doubled, it was still worth it for a decent night's sleep. Aijin and Yumiyang had gone to the lab, and people said Aijin was dragged there against his will. When Mirio heard he was swearing revenge, she actually admired it. After all, he was the best poison maker among them. In the lab, Aijin bragged that he had put his whole soul into this poison. He said it was no joke, so he was baffled when Yumiyang picked up the bowl. Then he started drinking the poison in one gulp. Aijin couldn't believe it and wondered if he'd gone insane. Someone grabbed him and shouted for him to spit it out, but Yumiyang just stood there with his cheeks full, calmly watching Aijin panic and asking if the poison had kicked in yet. Then he decided to spit and blasted it right into Aijin's face. He asked why the guy kept shaking him like that. After a moment, it became clear the poison had done almost nothing. Smiling, he asked if this poison was really supposed to be that weak. Aijin, now terrified, snapped back that it was strong enough to melt even internal organs, but he could only stare at the boy standing there perfectly fine, still smiling, and now suggesting that maybe Aijin's poison was just mediocre. Hearing the yelling from the lab, the girls realized something had gone completely wrong. Tang Aijin was stunned and angry. Yongmian was drinking the poison like it was just alcohol. When the bowl was empty, he showed it off and said it had done nothing. Then he asked if there was anything stronger. Since none of it worked, he even started wondering if he was immune to poison. But it wasn't simple poison immunity. This was the Tang family's core art, the madness of poison refinement. For someone trained to handle poison like that, getting poison normally would be the strange part. The Tang clan were poison masters, and in his case, the poison entering his body was turned into internal energy instead. That was a level only reached through deep understanding. Still, weak poison barely helped at all, so he always needed stronger kinds. There was still a lot to settle before he could live the normal life he wanted. If he chose, he could even wipe out the Elders, but if the Black Death Alliance or the Celestial Radiance Demon Lord moved in, he couldn't promise victory. He had no personal hatred for the Black Death Alliance, yet their grip on Sichuan meant they couldn't be ignored. Their leader was called a once-in-an-era genius, and had already destroyed 3 of the 9 factions. If he still had his former power, beating that man would be easy. But he wasn't there yet, and if he wanted to keep living as a man, then Aijin would need to make poison far stronger than what he had just taken. His thoughts paused when Aijin claimed he could make the Tang family's 10 poisons, and that instantly caught his interest. Aijin snapped back, saying that even though Yongmian carried the clan leader's blood, he knew nothing about the 10 poisons. They ranged from the 1st to the 10th, and the 10th was strong enough to affect even transcendent masters. That was why the elders kept them split up and controlled. Those poisons were too dangerous for anyone to handle lightly. Yongmian smiled, touched his chin, and thought now that was a poison worth having. He asked if Aijin really didn't know how to make the 10th poison, but Aijin answered that no one could just make it. Yongmian clicked his tongue, saying it was disappointing since the poisons he'd been given didn't even make him feel full. Annoyed, Aijin explained that the poison was so dangerous its use was mostly forbidden anyway. Somewhere else, Yumian was being grabbed by the throat by a young man demanding to know what she had done to him. He soon started coughing hard, clearly hit by a powerful poison. Looking down on him, she coldly told him to repeat what he had said about her face. Then the reaction got much worse. His body burned from the inside, like he might burst apart at any second, before he began to break down. The poison finished him off. He collapsed, turned to ash, and crumbled apart. She looked pleased. The poison her grandfather gave her was one of the 10 poisons. Touching the ruined side of her face, she smiled darkly. She remembered the pain from that day all too well. The anger never left, and she planned to make Yongyang suffer in this poison game. Before long, another half-year passed. That made a full year since he began fixing his weaknesses, but the real test was only starting now. Next came the announcement that each team had to choose a leader, which caught the girls off guard. The supervisor explained that it was time to name a temporary leader. Until the 3rd year, each team would pick one, and that person would stand for the team in a life-or-death match. The strongest participant would take the role. Still, not everyone would enter the goo poison match. Selection would be based on results. For Team 7, the choice was obvious. Number 28, Tang Yongyang. He was named their leader right away. Tang Jiahai added that he wasn't just the practice leader, he was also one of the top contenders overall. The supervisor reminded them this was only a temporary post, so nobody argued. Then he called number 28 forward and asked if he understood. He opened a box, showed him the reward, and told him to take it. It was the Tang family elixir known as the Celestial Heart Pill. Made from the root of a 100-year-old ginseng, the Celestial Heart Pill could greatly boost internal energy. The other three on the team immediately asked why something that valuable was being handed to Yongyang. The supervisor said it was a privilege given to the temporary team leader in the Tang clan. He also admitted he had especially high hopes for Tang Yongyang, but the boy asked if there was anything else besides the pill, and when told no, he refused it. An elixir wasn't what he wanted. He was after something else. The supervisor couldn't believe anyone would turn down such a reward unless it simply didn't help them. Yongyang answered right away. He wanted a deadly poison, the strongest they had, ideally one of the Tang family's 10 poisons. Later, when he came back, the others looked for the elixir, but only saw weapons. He explained that he had asked for one of the 10 poisons. Since that was denied, he took the weapons instead. Tang Mirio rushed at him at once, ready to punch him in the face. She thought he should have brought back the elixir, though the others argued his choice should be respected. Aijin smugly said the elders would be happy the celestial heart pill hadn't been wasted, but Yongyang stopped him. He said he hadn't returned it. A few hours earlier, in the weapon storehouse, the supervisor handed over what he requested and asked if that would do. Yongyang admitted he was disappointed it wasn't the strong poison he wanted, but if this was all he could get, he'd take it. The supervisor found that strange since everyone else chose the elixir. Then Yongyang asked what would happen to the pill. The answer was that it would be sent back to the Hall of the Medicine King. He hadn't changed his mind. He had just come up with something interesting. If his teammates could work together and beat the temporary leader, then the celestial heart pill should go to them as a reward. The supervisor liked the idea. It would motivate them and count as an investment in the Tang clan's future. So he announced they could challenge him any time. The deadline was before the goo poison match began, and the girls immediately stepped up first. But Yongyang had no plan to go easy on them. In his mind, once he became the clan's young leader, everyone would get a pill anyway. From then on, he was challenged non-stop. The seasons changed, and time flew by. Aijin kept losing every duel, but always came back for more training. Yomyang joked that he'd probably lost around 173 times already. Mirio thought he never seemed tired. His breathing didn't even change. Tang Yuri had already given up competing, and now she mostly just came to watch Yomyang. Her teammate agreed. It had become pretty fun to watch. After another win, he held out his hand and asked if Aijin finally accepted defeat, especially since he was getting closer to becoming the clan's young leader. He said he didn't know the other teams, but he still couldn't picture himself losing. Then someone asked if he'd start ignoring them once he became young master. The supervisor thought the whole team had grown a huge amount over the past year. He also reminded them that since Yomyang was now team leader, he had to enter the goo poison match the next day, so he told him to make his final preparations. 3 years had passed since training began, and during that time other teams had been disqualified or outright killed. Compared to them, every member of this team had survived and done well. Their growth was said to rival the Banhui Brigade, giving them every reason to be proud. The supervisor said he had already explained the goo poison match many times, but he would go over it once more. Up to now, poison use in training had been banned. In the goo poison match, though, even extreme poisons were allowed. From that point on, the competition became a battle of each fighter's deadliest skills and cruelest tactics. At last, he received the poison he had asked for. Ijin warned that a single drop could kill anyone else and made sure he understood just how deadly it was. Worried, he told him to promise he'd win, while still half-jokingly trying to punch him in the face. Yomyang caught his hand and pressed his own face into it. With a faint bruise on his nose, he promised. Then he added that until the competition ended, the only people allowed to hurt him were them. Under the eyes of the other three, he stepped through the passage prepared for the competition site. Elsewhere, someone else was thrilled. The day of the match had finally come. Yongryong held a vial of poison and said the 10 poisons she was preparing had given her a new ally. She recalled the moment a formation was open so someone from the Jiggle clan could speak with her. She asked how they planned to help. Since the goo poison arena was built on her family's formation, they could shift it to a better position for her. Still, she wasn't foolish. She knew help like that had a price, so she asked what they wanted in return. Jiggle admitted his clan was falling apart. To bring back its old power, he wanted to join hands with the Tying clan. She saw right through him. They wanted to use her like a puppet to meddle in Tying affairs. Jiggle said that was why he came. If she wanted something, they could call it friendship, but she had endured those 3 years for this one day. She would kill him and take back the life she lost. Now, as the leader of Team 1, she could hardly wait to see him again. On Team 2, Taiying Jinzhou was the leader. After beating an opponent, he sneered that he expected more from the Tying clan militia. To him, they were all just talk. Team 3 was led by Tying Gukrin. Tying Hirin led Team 4, Tying Gijil led Team 5, and Tying Myongso led Team 6. And Team 7 was led by Tang Yomyong. He figured it was a perfect day to win. From the goo poison match on, the real contest had begun. For 3 years, he had only been blending in, and now he had finally reached the competition grounds. Looking over the arena, he realized finding anyone would take time. What he didn't know was that Jiggle was spying on him already, waiting for his team to be chosen. Jiggle stared at him and thought his talent was being wasted. But the clan had already made its decision, so he would have to kill him fast before he became a problem. Then Yeomyung suddenly looked right toward Jiggle. For a second, Jiggle felt their eyes meet, but that should have been impossible through so many layers of formation. The next thing he heard was a blade. Yeomyung's short sword shattered the formation in one strike. Feeling that creepy gaze, Yeomyung wondered if the Jiggle clan was behind it. He remembered the supervisor's warning. No one except the participants was supposed to interfere in the goo poison match. But he had heard that clan had been meddling since the start of the tournament, so they might try something here too. Whatever they were planning, he'd deal with it later. Once the poison match ended, he could drag the truth out of them. Somewhere else, someone was shaking and gasping, even hidden behind several layers of formation. If they hadn't cut off the formation's vision in time, they would have gone blind. He had sliced straight into the core of the formation space. The man had never seen sword skill like that. They had made a terrible mistake. That boy was not someone he could face, and if Yeomyung noticed their intent, revenge would come for sure. Elsewhere, a wounded girl stumbled out of the forest with a heavy sigh. She cried that she had no idea how she ended up in this mess. She didn't want to be torn apart. All she wanted was a decent result, join the clan's forces, and help her poor parents. That was why she was here. She never wanted to become the young clan leader. She had planned to give up and leave, but then that guy suddenly showed up and said it was nice that everyone was in the same place, then attacked all of them at once. After that, surrender didn't matter. His goal was simply to wipe them out. She figured it no longer mattered who she ran into. Maybe the other team leaders were still alive, so she would just surrender. She was about to give up, but then she thought about what would happen if he came back as the young leader. As she muttered to herself, she felt a presence. The man who had beaten the others and wounded her appeared with a smile, saying she thought too highly of herself. He added that her movement was quick, but not enough, because her internal energy was pathetically weak. Showing off his trophies, he told her she was no different from the rest. In desperation, she yelled, asking why he was going this far. None of this was needed. They were family. That meant nothing to him. He never saw himself as part of the Tang family of Sichuan, and while she stood there terrified, he killed her. Elsewhere, Yongmian moved through the trees looking for a place to stay. He found a cave with no sign anyone had used it. Inside, nothing triggered his senses. This was good enough. He wanted to reach the transcendent level as fast as possible. He sat down to meditate. His body had matured by now, so there shouldn't be any side effects. To reach that level, he needed two things: enlightenment and enough internal energy to open the poison meridians. His past life had already given him the enlightenment, and thanks to the poison I Jin made, his internal energy had grown a lot too. So every condition was ready. He began breaking the seals on his poison meridians, releasing all the poison-refined madness he had stored up. The internal energy burst out with huge force. Normally, this kind of breakthrough brought unbearable pain, joints breaking and rebuilding again and again, creating a whole new body. But since he had gone through it once in his past life, the second time hurt less. As the process continued, everything around him glowed. It was a good thing he had kept cleansing his meridians. If any impurities had been left behind during ascension, he'd have gone into battle reeking. Still, for a first step, this wasn't bad. He decided to test his body outside. Staying clean and healthy had been important even before the match. There weren't many visible changes, but his power was much more efficient now. He tested it on a large rock and confirmed it. The internal energy flowed far better than before. It was time to move. Elsewhere, Tang Gukren stood on a tree trunk, looking down at another fighter he had been hunting. He asked why someone who had trained so hard was still so weak. The man cursed his luck. Of all the people he could have met, it had to be this monster, an orphan raised as the Grand Elder's grandson, Tang Gukren's favorite student, and every bit as strong as the rumors said. He had attacked first, thinking he had a chance, but couldn't even touch Gukren's collar before ending up like this. Staring at him, he knew it was over. Still, one thought kept bothering him. Why was Gukren hunting that guy right now? That guy was Tang Yumiang. Just thinking about not running into him made the injured man feel safer. Seeing him smile, Tang Gukren asked what was so funny. Did he still have some hidden trick? The man said no. He was only thinking of someone even scarier than Gukren. Gukren took that as an insult. He said maybe he should become even scarier, then asked if the man wanted to hear something interesting. He casually revealed that he was actually a spy from the Black Death Alliance. The injured young man was stunned he would say something that huge out loud. Since he now knew the truth, Gukren couldn't let him live. Gukren said the man looked ready to die anyway, so he might as well hear his name first. He was from the Great Silent Black Sword clan. After that, he prepared to finish him. Kneeling on the ground, the young man suddenly opened his eyes. The one about to kill him couldn't move at all. Tang Yumiang said he had sensed something strange and came to check it out, only to find a familiar face. Looking at the injured young man, he asked if he was Jian Jiao and whether he had recovered since their last fight. The young man stared at him in confusion and asked who he was. Years ago, this spy had been planted in the Tang clan. By pretending to be an orphan, he would get adopted, rise through the ranks, and quietly remove later candidates to weaken the clan from within. If he completed the mission and returned, his whole side would honor him. Now he lay on the ground, feeling like his insides were melting. Yumiang looked at Jianjiao and wondered if this was the one who had done that to him. Tang Jianjiao asked if he was really Tang Yumiang, and he confirmed it. Yumiang joked that he could slam his face into the dirt again if proof was needed, but that wasn't necessary. Jianjiao had already realized who he was. Struggling to speak, the injured young man asked if Gukrin had really admitted he was a spy. Yumiang said yes. He was from the Black Sword sect. Hearing that, Yumiang started thinking about the presence he had sensed earlier. First, he decided to capture him. With a hand sign, he pulled out the needle Gukrin had thrown at him from the start. Jianjiao was shocked. Now he was even using poison needles. He also wondered what kind of poison could cause that kind of reaction from such a tiny needle. Yumiang ignored the question and asked if he had seen anyone else. Jianjiao said yes. Then he asked if Yumiang should detoxify the injured man first, but that wasn't the point. He didn't need information from Gukrin. If he really belonged to a dark group like the Black Death Alliance, his purpose was obvious enough. Just listening to Yumiang, Jianjiao could tell he had changed a lot. Jianjiao worried about the old conflict between them, but it seemed Yumiang no longer cared. Still, before he could finish, the young man on the ground reacted and tried to rise. Jianjiao bowed deeply, apologizing with real regret for what happened before. Yumiang told him to forget it. The past didn't matter to him anymore. Jianjiao said he knew that wouldn't erase their history, but he still needed to say he was sorry. Again, Yumiang told him not to worry about it. Then Jianjiao's eyes widened. Fearing for Yumiang, he warned him that danger was coming, but Yumiang had already felt that presence. The wounded enemy decided that if he was going to die, he would drag both of them down with him. He lashed out wildly, thinking he had struck someone, shouting that he would at least take one with him. Jianjiao cried out, thinking Yumiang had been hit. The attacker believed it too for a moment, until he realized it had only been an illusion. He had sensed Yumiang's presence, but guessed wrong. Yumiang said people usually spare someone who's already dying, but if he kept trying to attack, he'd erase him completely. Resting a hand on his shoulder, he added that dealing with a corpse would only be a hassle. That single touch knocked the young man out. Now only the three of them remained in the forest, and even as a spy, he had still been one of the top contenders to win the competition. If that last move really was the poison art of the Great Darkness Silent Sword, and if Yumiang could casually use the Twin Sword Timid Sword technique with lightning speed, Tang Jianjiao's thoughts were cut off when he realized they were now alone. He said that if permitted, he would forfeit right there. The only problem was that he didn't know how to get out. Yumiang opened a way for him and told him to leave. No goodbye needed. Seeing that he could even control formations, Jianjiao thanked him for sparing his life. Yumiang watched him go, and even wished him luck. At the Black Moon Sword Sect headquarters, a spiritual orb could tell from far away whether someone was alive or dead. The youngest had one implanted in him, and now it showed that he was dead. He was born from the sect leader's affair with a servant, yet he had more talent than all his other siblings. Once the wife learned that, she feared he'd replace her chosen heir, and tried to kill him over a dozen times. That's why he was sent to live as a spy inside the Tang clan, and his father regretted not doing more for him. If nothing else, he could avenge him. He ordered every disciple to get ready to head for Mount Gangao. The time they had waited for, to crush the Tang clan, was finally near. He also told them to contact the other sects. From that day on, no one with the Tang name would leave Mount Gangao alive. The situation was strange. They had traveled non-stop, yet found no one, not even a trace of spiritual energy. If the formation had been altered to block their path, then the survivors should have gathered with the Jigo clan. He already knew they wanted to slowly grow their power inside the Tang clan. To him, they were easy to read, and those greedy plans were going to cost them dearly. Still, Jigo kept feeling like someone was watching him. Elsewhere, Yomyong lay in the grass staring upward, wishing he could at least send word to his mother and wondering how she was doing. Before long, he drifted off to sleep. Yongryong approached, still carrying her desire for revenge, but the person lying there looked like a stranger. She had asked to find the last survivor, Tang Yomyong, at a weak moment, yet this man didn't look like Tang Gukrin. Then, as she got closer, she noticed he was handsome. After watching him a bit longer, she thought he might be Changshan's nephew from the Jigo clan. He kind of looked the part. Putting something in her mouth, she felt it was a shame his face would be ruined, but there was nothing else to do. Then she released one of her strongest poisons. With him apparently asleep, she warned him not to be so careless. The contest would only end when one person was left. Without even opening his eyes, he said he wasn't sure she was ready for this, and grabbed her by the neck. He rose and forced her to her knees, asking if the Jigo clan was backing her. While everyone else was killing each other, she'd likely been hiding somewhere safe, waiting to strike the last weakened survivor. Tightening his grip, he demanded to know what deal they had made. She was stunned that he had sensed her coming. He coldly told her that if she wanted to live, she'd answer and hide nothing. He asked if she didn't want to breathe. She could only think that this wouldn't have happened if fear hadn't made her drop the drug. As he held her, he felt like he knew her from somewhere. Then he asked if she was Tang Yomyong, adding that after all the trouble she'd caused, she still hadn't changed. He asked whether he should ruin her whole face this time. Nearby, Jigo watched and realized his scheme might have been exposed. Number 28 had damaged the formation and messed up his sight, though he had still arranged for everyone but number 2 to be eliminated. Everything had gone smoothly until number 10 rapidly wiped out the other contestants. Then number 28 appeared, and the situation changed. If number 2 and number 10, who were close in skill, had fought, the result might have gone either way. But after seeing how fast number 10 beat the others, Jigo doubted number 2 could defeat 28. He kept thinking that if number 28 won, all his plans would collapse. He had no idea what to do. Then something inside the formation caught his attention. A huge number of energies. The enemy had already reached the foot of the mountain. Even so, the Chongjin sect leader felt sending full force against Tang clan rookies was too much. There were only 2 Tang disciples against more than 200, and with the other sects joining in, the number had reached 300. Still, he had expected to clash with the Tang clan. As for strength, it may have been excessive, but this mountain was sect territory, and Gandong's power far surpassed the weakened Tang clan. He said there was no more reason to talk. They were leaving at once. None of them knew the Jigo clan was watching them. As he observed sect leader Ma Qianhu, Jigo thought that unless the man had taken part in the contest, he shouldn't have found this place. That meant there might be a spy. He needed to report it to the Bangi brigade, but if he could use these people to kill number 28, his own actions would stay hidden from the Tang clan. Smiling to himself, he realized his mistakes could still be covered. Elsewhere, the girl with the face covering thought it was absurd that she hadn't recognized him even when he was right in front of her. Now she just waited for one opening. He asked what was on her blade. Poison maybe? He had never seen a poison that bright red. She took that as a distraction and threw the liquid still in her hand at him, trying to finish him off. He caught her wrist at once and, curious about the substance, questioned her. She tried to respond but couldn't get the words out. Looking at the vial, he asked if it was poison. From the color, it seemed to be the same thing she had coated the blade with. Then he slammed her down to her knees and demanded an answer. He squeezed her cheeks until her mouth opened and said that if she refused to talk, they could revisit the past a little more directly. He was about to pour the poison into her mouth when she begged him to stop and promised she'd talk. He still thought it would be better to let her taste it first and tell him exactly what poison it was. It was one of the Tang clan's 10 poisons, the fire dragon poison, one of the strongest. That caught his attention. The Tang family's 10 poisons weren't meant to be used carelessly. If it really was fire dragon poison, then it was more like a treasure to him, and letting her waste it would be a shame. She said she had already agreed to surrender and asked him to release her. She even offered to help him fight the others, but he said she still hadn't given the full answer. He wanted to know whether she was working with the Jigo clan. He told her to explain what they had promised her, or she'd be forced to swallow all of the fire dragon poison. She confessed it was a marriage proposal, an alliance through marriage if the clans were joined. The offer was for her to marry the future young clan leader, so the Jigal leaders were trying to protect their position. She should have gladly accepted such a match, something most people could only dream of. Then, taking the rest of the poison while still holding her by the neck, he brushed off her question about what he was doing, and said only that he had no plan to share it with her. She realized it was the fire dragon poison, and he drank it. The taste surprised him. It was almost like strawberry. Right after that, heat burst from his body as if flames had taken him over. Still on her knees under his grip, she stared in disbelief. She said even an invulnerable body couldn't endure one of the Tang clan's 10 poisons. She expected to watch him burn away, but the hand around her neck never loosened. Even when fire rose over his head, she could only stare. Then he remarked that the poison had suddenly turned spicy. Crushed, the girl couldn't believe what she was seeing. The Tang clan had a legendary state beyond the invulnerable body, the poisoner's realm. Her grandfather had said it was real, but she never believed she'd meet an actual poisoner. He looked at her and struck her torso with just enough force to leave her completely unable to move. Then he said she must have thought he'd kill himself with the poison she handed him. He told her he wasn't that soft. Looking at his hands, he noticed the poison-refining mad energy had changed. He hadn't expected a so-called plant poison to be this strong, almost like training in yin-yang martial arts. Then he left her there kneeling, frozen in place for good, and thanked her for giving him something useful. Suddenly, he sensed something strange. Looking up, he saw the night sky glowing as if dawn were breaking. The formation was shifting non-stop. At first, he thought it was shutting down because the contest was over, but that wasn't it. What he actually felt were strange presences appearing all at once, maybe 200, maybe over 300. For the clan, that number was far too suspicious. The Jigal clan couldn't have missed a force that large. So if they had let them enter the formation on purpose, then sending targets straight to him to train on was quite the piece of luck. In the GU poison match, only one person was meant to survive. Jigal was reporting the invasion to the Banwi brigade, and the warrior who heard it immediately tensed up. Changshin pointed out that there seemed to be a spy among them. There was a spy among them. They already knew the enemy's identity and numbers, about 300 in the main force, led by Mak Injuk of the Black Moon Sword Clan. But why were people who should be in Sichuan here, and how had they found a place hidden by the 7-lock ghost formation? Still, this wasn't the time to wonder about that. They had to stop them fast, but Jiggle said that was the real problem. Asked why, he explained he had never expected this. If the intruders entered the formation where the poison match was happening, no one outside could interfere. They would have to trust the young clan members still inside. All they could do was pray the youths survived the crisis. When the Black Moon sect leader saw his youngest son lying there, he exploded with rage. The Changjin sect leader said the signs proved they had come to the right place. From the wound, he guessed the attack came from a needle. There were barely any signs of a fight, so the victim had been taken down before he could resist. Furious, the Black Moon Sword sect leader roared for everyone to search the whole formation and wipe out the Tang clan rats. He was sure one of them had spotted their arrival and gone into hiding. If anyone found a target, they were to report it at once. Yet not a single person there carried the Tang name. The leader stayed calm, though for once his killing intent showed clearly. Some guessed the corpse they found earlier might have been the spy they planted there. Its only outside injuries were needle marks on the neck. That was why the Tang clan was feared. No matter how strong you were, they attacked to kill. Their master warned everyone to watch for hidden weapons, but a volley hit almost right away. They were already under attack. Seeing a disciple drop, he realized it was poisoned needles. They yelled that it was an ambush and ordered everyone to draw their swords. But they couldn't tell where the strikes were coming from and shouted for the attacker to stop hiding. They kept warning each other not to relax, but it changed nothing. Needles poured down on them and there was no way to dodge them. Wave after wave of poison needles tore through the group, sparing no one. Yomyung was pleased. He was using the single palm poison technique, and its killing power was incredible. At least against ordinary foot soldiers, it worked perfectly. With a flick of his hand, he pulled back every needle. He also liked the flow technique. It used very little internal energy to scatter poison needles. As he left, he decided this combo was the best. Now he only had to find the group that went east. Soon, reports came in that every search team had been wiped out, all with wounds like needle strikes. It looked like they had all died from the same deadly poison as the first corpse. Every single group had fallen the same way, and before they could understand it, word came that the Western Lookout had also been destroyed. Hearing that no team had made it back, the Black Moon Sword Sect leader began to think hard. That was all the men they had. Yet in just 1 hour, around 100 had been killed by the same method. Someone asked if one person could really have done this. If there were several fighters like that, things were even worse. It felt like a Tang clan master was hunting them. He realized the hunters had become the hunted. So he called Zhang Banju and gave him command. Since Zhang used spectral throwing techniques, he would prepare for an ambush himself. He couldn't afford to lose more disciples and told him to handle the rest. Then he noticed something strange. There was no presence anywhere. The silence felt wrong. He was angry. They kept losing men and gaining nothing. Maybe retreating now was the smarter choice before the damage got worse. He said they would leave within an hour. Not long after, a voice answered him. Looking up, he saw a man on a tree branch, and unlike what he hoped, that man had no plan to let any of them go. Fear grabbed him. He couldn't understand how his senses had missed that presence, so he shouted for everyone to dodge immediately. He was trying to save as many men as he could, but in an instant, they were all struck down, and the losses became massive. Only the leader was left, and Yongmian asked what rank he held. Even Yun Yun Hyuk, the Changjin sect leader, was fully alert, yet he still hadn't sensed the moment the boy dropped from the tree. One look was enough to know this was the one behind the earlier slaughter. He didn't look like some old master, though. The sect leader guessed the attack might be a kind of void absorption. But that realm was something only a high master who had reached enlightenment should be able to use. Then he noticed the boy didn't attack again, and instead paused to recover. That meant the technique must burn through huge amounts of internal energy. Hope suddenly returned, and a smile crept onto his face. The boy was overconfident. He said he had never heard of someone like him in the Tang clan. Yongmian answered that it didn't matter whether he had or not. That reply clearly shocked the sect leader. Yongmian coldly said a man about to die had no need to know his name, wiping the confidence from the leader's face. Enraged, the sect leader snapped that if this brat wanted death so badly, then he would gladly give it to him. He gathered himself and sharpened every movement of his technique for maximum force. His breathing slowed as he focused. Certain one strike would finish it, he stepped in and attacked, but the blow was simply blocked. He couldn't understand how his full power move had been handled so easily. Yongmian sneered and asked if that was really his strongest attack. If he wanted, he could take a little more time. Maybe he could even raise that pitiful power a bit. This traces back to long before the competition. After the Spearhead sect, one of the 9 clans, fell to the Black Death Alliance, Zhang Jinbong joined them on his own, and they valued his skill in personal techniques. They polished those techniques further until, by the time he met the syndicate leader on his journey, Jong In-sung's signature art, Shaking the Peak, had completely changed. But the old name no longer fit. Since it now belonged to different hands, the syndicate leader said it should rise to the heavens, and the Black Death Alliance leader renamed it Heavenly Quake Palm. That was the technique passed down by the syndicate leader, and yet a young man had crushed it with ease. The boy from the Tang clan just watched him calmly. Yong unleashed the fire dragon poison. It was one of the deadliest toxins, carrying the breath of a fire dragon. If someone could control it with poisonous aura madness or sword-like killing intent, that power would be terrifying. The Chongjin sect leader couldn't grasp how a youth could hold such monstrous force and still struggled uselessly against the blocked strike. He simply couldn't accept that Heavenly Quake Palm had lost. But the truth was simpler. He wasn't strong enough to endure it, and his body shattered into petrified pieces. Yong saw what just a small amount of one of the 10 poisons could do, and found it very useful. Since the fiery poison chi carried heat, he figured it should be called Fire Poison Strength. Then he wondered who he should burn to death next. He had no plan to let any of them leave alive, so wiping them all out first would be easier. The surviving soldiers hated hearing that from someone so young. They demanded to know if he was the one. Was he the guardian disciple who killed the youngest? They remembered his threat that he would leave no ashes in Gangdong or anywhere else. Even after watching him beat their leader so easily, they still thought they had a chance. Orders went out, and they formed up around him. From the center, he heard them warning each other about poison and hidden weapons, while others said they should wear down his strength first until they had him fully surrounded. Now Mok Injuk, the Black Moon Sword sect leader, was set on avenging his youngest's painful death. The men already lost couldn't have died for nothing. This boy had to be killed, but Yongmyeon still didn't move. He just stood in the middle and waited for them to come. The formation they used reminded him of old training. He answered with the dance of the whirling dog, pleased at the chance to try something new. Sand started rising around him. Then he vanished from the center of their circle. Panic spread as they tried to find him. When they finally did, everything had turned red, and there was nowhere left to run. Even the sect leader was shaken. He hadn't seen the move at all. One young man was throwing the whole battlefield into chaos, and more enemies rushed in to avenge the brothers already killed. Lifting a hand toward them, he asked if he could borrow their swords. The moment he said it, the blades crumbled like dust. By now, they were calling him a monster. How could he destroy swords without even touching them? He turned the shattered blades into tiny fragments and controlled each area with pure intent, making the broken pieces spin like weapons. Everything rotated around him, and nothing could reach him. This was the peak of the Tang clan's hidden weapon arts. He kept walking untouched. It was the reign of 10,000 heavenly blossoms. Many thought someone this young could never use that technique, much less show it at such a terrifying level. Against weak enemies, it was overwhelming. So he decided to name this version Iron Shard Barrage. Yongmyeon grew curious. After using so many men to wear him down, wasn't it finally his turn? That taunt deeply angered the Black Moon Sword sect leader. He spat back that such arrogance would cost him, and swore they would see how long that spirit lasted. There was no reason to fear him, no matter what he'd done with the Tai Wei twin sword technique, or the syndicate leader's silent sword technique. The sect leader believed he could still crush him. Yongmyeon was already tired of hearing that. It was the same speech again, and with revenge on his mind, the man rushed in and told him to shut up. He swore he'd crush him, but all he really did was pull out his short sword and get ready. The moment the leader used the Tai Wei silent sword technique, Yongmyeon answered with the Whirlpool Arc Sword Dance. That only made Yongmyeon more bored. Seeing his attacks treated so lightly, the sect leader got even angrier. He unleashed the final move of the Tai Wei silent sword, but Yongmyeon stopped it with a single short blade. That one clash was enough to leave the Black Moon Sword sect leader drained. He couldn't understand how a dagger had blocked the twin sword technique's strike. Yongmyeon calmly said he knew a bit about swordsmanship and had already read the flow of his sword intent. Then, almost kindly, he decided to show him how the move should really be done. He performed it properly with just a short blade, leaving the sect leader stunned. He couldn't believe Yongmyeon could use the silent sword technique at all. Now that the proper form was clear, Yongmyeon's strike swept through only the space around him. He added that the sword's killing aura was so strong, he figured it had been made to kill from the start. To him, there was nothing hard about controlling it. The sect leader stared down in shock. Even he had needed to master the ultimate twin sword technique first. Then he remembered the man Yongmyeon killed a few hours earlier had used that same art. Yongmyeon said he didn't know much about them, only that they served the Black Death Alliance. Any martial art they learned could be turned into a higher form that matched its user. That was why so many people threw away their old lives to join the Black Death Alliance. As long as someone could handle killing energy, copying a technique like this wasn't that hard. With a smile, he said he'd even given him that kind of martial art, since Ryan Ju clearly didn't trust him much. He added that the man had done pretty well for someone who usually sat around doing nothing. so now he'd show him a move in return. And he warned him not to be too shocked. That only made the Black Moon Sword Sect leader uneasy. He had no idea what Myung was about to do. Myung explained that once someone reached the transcendental level, the size of the sword no longer mattered. Mak In-hoo had thought he was winning, but even then he was shaken. That boy's talent was terrifying, and now Myung was using the Blade River technique. The Black Moon Sword Sect leader had years of experience and fought with 2 long swords, yet a boy with a short blade still left him speechless. He listened as Myung spoke of the power he now had. It wasn't because of his body, it wasn't the same as before. Mak In-hoo realized the silent sword technique carried power far beyond an ordinary blade. Then it hit him. The young man handled blade energy with ease, used Blade River, and had already reached the final stage. Knowing he was in real danger, he turned and ran, desperate to live. The young Tang clan member called after him, saying he wasn't escaping, just running in circles. Either way, it would end the moment he was caught. As a Tang clan member, Myung felt it would be more fitting to finish him in a special way. While Myung calmly got ready, the sect leader ran with everything he had. He couldn't understand it. No one had ever told him the Tang clan had a monster like this. How could someone at the final stage come from a fallen Tang clan? Ryanju wouldn't ignore this. Then he looked back and saw trees being cut apart behind him, as if to scare him. He had no idea what he was seeing. It looked like energy-coated rings, and those tiny circles were slicing through trees like soft tofu. Their speed was insane. Once those attacks started reaching him, he desperately tried to block them. He knew he couldn't avoid everything forever and would have to face it. He finally stopped and prepared to fight for his life, shouting for the spinning ring weapons to come at him. At first, it almost seemed to work. He was holding on. He refused to accept dying there. But the blows were so strong they cracked his sword, forcing him to deal with the silent sword technique at the same time. And when that damaged blade finally gave out, he started getting cut by the attacks. They tore through his body and even took some of his limbs. Still, even down to 1 sword, he kept fighting. When he noticed he'd managed to knock a few away, his hatred only grew. He shouted that the Black Moon Sect wouldn't fall like this. Even broken, he believed that if he stayed calm, he could still plan for what came next. What comforted him was the thought that Myung must have used up a lot of energy. But then the young man walked over calmly and even praised him. The Black Moon Sword Sect leader realized that after using such a huge technique, Myung was still full of strength. Then, with a few hand signs, he sent those weapons attacking again. The sect leader saw the blades spinning even while stuck in the ground, and when they lifted back up, they kept spinning. He couldn't make sense of it. This wasn't a normal person. He had thrown away everything as a Tang clan disciple, devoted himself fully to the Black Death Alliance, and built his name there. Yet he still couldn't even touch that young man. In that moment, he started doubting everything he'd done. Knowing the enemy was finished, Myung waved his hand and called his weapons back. The rings slowly returned to his fingers, still spinning, without leaving a mark. Then he looked around to check if everyone had gone down while he tested those different techniques. Now that he was the clan's successor, teaching the people below him mattered too. For now though, he had to leave things there. He still had loose ends to handle. He got ready to use one more technique, because he still had to deal with the elders who took his mother away. The Jiggle clan, which wanted to seize the Tang clan, also had to be stopped. Now it was an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and he began breaking apart the formation. Elsewhere, the brigade asked Changshin if there was really no way in. Jigul apologized and said they'd made things so no one could interfere. The supervisor and the rest of Myung's group were worried. Jigul knew his words were a lie, but he had to stay quiet until everything was done. Once someone entered that formation, the entrance was sealed. After the men outside were subdued and the people inside were confirmed, no one was supposed to leave the field alive. Inside were the Great Dark Silent Sword Sect and the Black Moon Sword Sect. Jiggle thought even number 28 would never make it back alive. It was a waste of talent, but while he talked about the Tang clan's future, he suddenly felt a familiar energy. He knew whatever was coming would be deadly for him. The supervisor and the others saw who it was and were thrilled. Tang Yuri threw herself at Myung, relieved he was alive, then reminded him that until the competition was over, only they were allowed to beat him up. Jiggle, though, was horrified to see number 28 alive. Myung stayed calm and greeted his friends, while Jiggle kept thinking this should have been impossible. How could 300 soldiers fail to kill one brat like him? But then Myung looked his way, and that single glance made him shake. He quickly hid behind his fan. Myung also noticed Tang Janjil, who greeted him with a raised hand, but only got a look in return. Jigul couldn't accept what he was seeing. He remembered that Myung had once even broken through a 7-locked ghost formation. This unit had been made for real battle. It was on the level of the 8 laws and earthly punishments. Even a master would struggle. Yet Myung had walked through all of it. Maybe that young man had realized he was being watched again. If he could, Myung would have killed him on the spot. But until he became chief, he couldn't do anything that might be used against him. The supervisor was relieved that number 28, Tang Yongmyong was safe. He apologized for making Warrior 1 Jin worry so much, but in his head, he was already planning to deal with the elders first. The supervisor said he was glad he survived, but wanted to know what had happened, and what happened to the other competitors. Then the ground started shaking like an earthquake. The brigade warriors looked up and saw a crack in the sky nearby, with light pouring out. Jigul knew the unit sustaining the 7 locked ghost formation was breaking apart. Soon, everyone could see shattered pieces, and inside, each one were images of what had happened within. At least now, Yongmyong didn't have to explain anything. It was all right there. The brigade watched the fragments and saw the different uniforms. Most belonged to the Black Moon Sword sect. The supervisor was stunned. Yongmyong had really faced all of them alone. Then someone pointed out another figure. It was the leader of the Black Moon Sword sect, and the double sword sheath on his back made it clear it was Mak In-hu. The supervisor knew Mak In-hu shouldn't have been able to beat that young man. Yongmyong just said there had been a lot of them, but handling them wasn't that hard. The brigade leader said that sounded just like him. He had already gone beyond the level of a leader. He had taken down more than 100 enemies alone, and the Black Moon Sword sect was famous too. His team said the leader's seat had been his from the start. While everyone was celebrating, Moon-chan only felt useless because his arm had been ruined. He was still full of resentment toward Tang Yumiao, thinking he was just trash who once struggled because he couldn't learn martial arts. Then, as he kept wondering how someone like that could go this far, he heard that the tournament was over. They announced the winner, number 28, Tang Yumiao, and asked if anyone wanted to challenge the result. Moon-chan did, but in his condition, all he could do was stay quiet and wait. Since no one stepped forward, they declared the whole match fair and complete. With that, the tournament was officially over. All the warriors were ordered to gather in front of Tang Yumiao. His side was thrilled. After fighting that many enemies, the moment hit them hard. The supervisor thought that after years of decline, the Tang clan finally had a winner in Tang Yumiao. To him, this was the birth of the leader who could bring the clan back. They named him the new master. Aside from Tang Wenjin, there were 82 members. They knelt before the new Tang clan chief, and everyone shouted for his long life. His people could already feel others treating him differently. Still, they weren't sure if they should start speaking to him more formally. The supervisor thought that even though he wasn't yet 20, if he kept growing, he could restore the clan's old name. Yumiao then shouted that he already knew what they wanted, and it wouldn't take long to make it happen. Everyone felt like he had read their thoughts. Those words only made his authority feel more real. They pledged to follow the tournament winner. His first order was to get ready. They were heading back to the main house. Munchen burned with anger. He couldn't understand why Yumiao got everything he wanted. Even so, he swore to get revenge somehow, even if it meant selling his soul. After a while, everyone left, and only the bodies remained. Taihu from the United Sect looked over the corpses, mourning his leader. He said he had rushed over as soon as he heard what happened. Then several others arrived and told him he shouldn't be wandering around alone. They reminded him he was now at the top and needed to act like it, but he said he could barely hear them and found the whole thing strange. Hyunzo told him to stop dodging the point. He said no one could sleep beside a mountain of corpses, and added that he planned to leave the place at once. Still, Hyunzo found it hard to believe that more than 300 people had been wiped out. He muttered that an old eagle beats a young crow, just what you'd expect from a clan that once had real power. What made it stranger was that the Tang clan had fewer than 100 members, and this happened in an open area. Something this big should have been noticed, so he suspected they had been sent there on purpose. What he didn't know was why. On top of that, the Blood family had even sent expensive gifts for the tournament. Unless someone was hiding something, they couldn't be sure of anything. The leader said he hadn't realized the Kang family's blade art had fallen this far. So many were killed by a single dagger. That shocked Hyunzo even more when he heard one person had done it all. There was no way his eyes were being fooled. Most of the bodies looked like they had been taken down by sword techniques, but some never even drew their weapons, meaning they died in seconds. They needed to find out who did it, so they decided to go to Sichuan. Hyunzo worried they might run into that person on the way. The leader brushed it off, asking if he'd forgotten how he reached the top. He said protecting himself wouldn't be hard, so there was no need to worry. Hyunzo knew it wasn't that simple, but he still worried about his master. He told him that, fool or not, he truly believed he could handle a fight with that person. Even so, he felt his master was being too stubborn and should return to the clan first, or at least send word to the leader. Right now, the Black Death Knot Alliance was in the south and the demonic cult in the east. Even then, his master wanted to meet the one who caused this massacre. He started to think his master meant to use the Tang clan against the Black Death Alliance. Either way, he believed the Tang clan had already been weakened for a long time. Still, he honestly hoped things wouldn't come down to sword techniques. Elder Sanjandro listened as the warriors brought back the tournament participants. It looked like the contest had ended sooner than expected. He figured that child Yangriang, with her skill in the fire dragon poison, should have had no trouble winning. Then someone told him that Lady wasn't among the people who returned, and that startled him. People had expected the leader's grandson to win, but that girl had trained wildly after her face was scarred. Still, as long as they all came back, that was what mattered. Those people were important. Then they noticed the Tang family crest. These weren't regular warriors, which meant the tournament competitors had returned. They realized the competition was already over and were surprised at how fast time had passed. Looking at Tang Yumian, they asked who he was, especially since the girls around him couldn't stop staring. One father spotted his daughter among the competitors and cried in relief. He also saw young Master Jianjil, who looked unusually happy. All around them, people found family and loved ones in the crowd, but when someone was missing, worry rose at once, and some broke into tears. Yumian understood those faces belonged to parents whose children hadn't survived. It made him think his own mother must be worried too. He wondered what he'd do if he went home and she didn't even recognize him. He even imagined her shocked expression. That happy thought was cut off when Tang Yuri called to him and told him to look to the side. She pointed toward the General Administration Department. Excited, she said the man with glasses over there was her father. Noticing his freckles, Yumian told her to take good care of him. As they got closer, she said she wasn't about to miss a chance like this. She explained that her father had never been promoted because he was too kind, so he'd been stuck doing all kinds of work until now. Yumian thought that might actually work in his favor. People tied too closely to the elders could become a problem once he took control. It would be better to find those willing to stand with him, so he decided to learn more about Aijin. While Mirio suspected Aijin had something to do with the timing, the Tang clan's general commander, Tang Nokism, praised the warriors for their hard work. Changshin then greeted the clan chief. The commander said he'd never forget how the Jiggle clan had helped the main house, and Jiggle only asked that the favor be returned when needed. He felt satisfied, thinking that support had helped the tournament end peacefully. When Changshin arrived, Yumian noticed one of his achievements being recognized. He told everyone the elders had already been informed and said they should head there. The warriors, meanwhile, could dismiss and rest. He added that after years of effort, their missions were finally done, and they must be exhausted. But the brigade leader apologized and said he would not be going to the elder's house. He introduced himself as Tang Wanjin and explained that he was only temporarily in charge of the honor guards. The general commander stared at him and asked if he had heard right. He really refused to go to the elder's house? Tang Wanjin answered that the tournament rules only mentioned the winner and the Tower of Stealth and Poisons. Going to the elder's house made no sense. The commander demanded to know how a mere warrior dared talk about rules in front of him. Wanjin thought that if they objected now, then they were basically being told to ignore the elder's orders. Then someone stepped forward. Yumiang said that if someone in the main house held more power than the family head, then he wanted to know who exactly he, Tang Yumiang, the tournament winner, was supposed to be. The commander reported everything to the elders, who were stunned to hear that he had won. Even the general commander was sweating as he repeated it. The competitor and victor was Tang Yumiang. No one could believe it. How could someone like him win? They even brought up the fire dragon poison, saying he hadn't managed to use it. The disciple Guokrin had lost to Yumiang again, and the Sichuan leader was left in disbelief. He knew the boy's talent and effort, but still couldn't accept that this child might become chief. Before the finals, they had all believed that child couldn't possibly defeat Guokrin, so for him to improve that much in 3 years felt impossible. They were sure he had used some kind of trick. The second elder, Tang Maiyongxing, said he had planned to leave and put the war behind him. The fourth elder agreed and asked how someone like Yumiang could defeat the other candidates. He said if they wanted answers, they first needed to know where Tang Yumiang was. Then he asked why the boy hadn't come to the elder's house. Someone replied that only the clan leader could summon the successor, even if the leader's seat was empty. He reminded them that he had already been challenged before for refusing their decisions. He added that Yumiang still hadn't been officially recognized as successor. The commander knew their position would be at risk if someone who hated the elders became successor, so he urged Yumiang not to provoke them. Yumiang fixed him with a hard stare and said that was enough. That alone made the man feel his bones shake. Everyone noticed the dark killing intent pouring off him. They understood that if they pushed him any further, they might be torn apart. Terrified, the commander decided to go speak with the elders. The young winner said he didn't care what those lazy old men thought. The tournament was over, and so was their rule. Then Yumiang ordered the commander to bring the elders to him. He also told him to make one thing clear: their reign was finished. One elder dismissed it as the arrogance of a stupid young man. Even the poisoned phoenix had to be careful around them. But he also saw a chance here. Since Yumiang still hadn't been officially named sect leader, they could question his behavior and strip him of his right to succeed. Just as he had suggested with the Tower of Stealth and Poisons, they needed to test what he was really capable of. The elder ordered the warriors outside to listen. He called the Great Elder's troops, the Second Elder's Integrity Unit, the Fourth Elder's Poison Unit, and the Fifth Elder's Shadow Unit. He also summoned the Blue Dragon Master to lead the Blue Dragon Force to the Tower of Stealth and Poison. They were going to challenge the Council's authority and teach that arrogant boy how things really worked. He would find out who truly ruled the Tang family. The Dark King, Tang Jiaqi, could barely believe his nephew had won the contest to become the next Tang leader. Young Mian told him he had heard right. The Dark King had always felt the boy was special, even as a child. Now his presence was far stronger than before. He knew his sister would be happy. Tang Jiaqi, father of Tang Munchin, was stunned to learn Yang Mian had won the competition. Not long ago, he had gone to Yang Mian's house and promised punishment for both him and his mother over what happened to his son's arm. He had even said he didn't care if it took 4 years. Now he stood in front of the new leader, who brought up those very words. With a cold stare, Yang Mian said he was right. It hadn't even taken 4 years. Then he warned him to watch every word he spoke in the Tang house. If not, his other son might lose an arm too. His uncle, the Dark King, could tell he was still holding on to that anger. At the same time, the brigade leader was worried about Tang Yangmian. He remembered how shocked the general had been after seeing the poisoned phoenix's son. Until then, he hadn't known Yangmian was really her son. The general had said there were things he needed to know, but that talk could wait. Now the brigade leader understood it was true. He really was that person's son. If so, then it all traced back to the clash with the heavenly bright demon lord who targeted the poisoned phoenix. The Tang warriors fought with their lives, but even with equal numbers, the gap in strength was huge. That land was thrown into chaos and ruin, and their resistance had been fiercer than expected. It was so brutal that even the leader died, and still, it wasn't over. On that tyrant's orders, they were told to release. The enemy kept pushing forward, ignoring poison arts and not caring if they died. The Tang asked the elders for reinforcements against the heavenly bright demon lord, but the elders refused to help. If they had stepped in, the losses could have been smaller. Instead, those shameless elders blamed the phoenix, saying the clan would have suffered less if she had just obeyed the heavenly bright demon lord. Unable to join the battle, she still took the blame from the elder leader. Though she had done nothing wrong, she should have been there protecting the young lord in her care. He believed everyone had realized whose son this young man was, especially the ones who failed that day. It felt like fate had given them one more chance, and this time they had to. A loud voice suddenly cut him off and told him to stop. He recognized it at once. Yomyung suggested they head outside and look. The honor guards really intended to stand against the elder council. The elder leader demanded to know where Tang Yomyung was. The brigade leader realized the young man had predicted this, though he hadn't expected even his own forces to be pinned down. Seeing everyone gathered, he understood the elders felt their power was in danger. The elder leader said their words made no sense and ordered them to bring Yomyung at once. But the young man answered, there was no need. He was already there. The Dark King noticed the third elder, and the others had all arrived too. They demanded to know how he dared sit in the future clan leader's place without their approval. Yomyung answered that he had already proved himself by winning the competition, and they were only checking for wrongdoing inside the tower. Then he looked right at them and asked what else they wanted. The elders were furious at his tone. How dare he speak like that before the clan elders? They warned the branch leader that if he wanted to live, he should keep quiet about what happened during the exam. Yomyung had already heard that what happened in the competition was supposed to be spoken of, so the clan's laws seemed looser than he expected. He added that maybe he had received an unfair advantage. One elder snapped back that the Black Moon Sword sect had interfered with nearly 300 enemy fighters. If that still counted as fair, then what didn't? Yomyung explained that Tang Gukrin and Tang Yangryong had killed the other contestants, and he simply ended the contest by wiping them out. Since that interference came after the competition, he saw no unfairness in his victory. The elder flew into a rage when he heard the young man had killed his grandson. Yomyung told him to go back to the mountain and check for himself. If the Gangneung sect hadn't cleaned the place up, the body would still be there. Completely enraged, the elder launched a killing strike at him, and the Dark King and brigade leader were instantly alarmed. The blow was so strong it hit people nearby too. Calling him a fool, the elder said he had only raised the issue because he wanted. Yomyung stopped the attack with one hand and calmly asked if he still couldn't believe it. Everyone around them was stunned. After blocking the strike, he looked at the elder and asked if he really couldn't accept that his grandson was dead. The elder couldn't believe his demon-killing poison had been stopped with one hand. How had it been blocked so easily? For a moment, he wondered if the young man had already surpassed the internal energy he had built over decades. But he rejected that thought and demanded to know how this brat dared mock an elder. Yongmyong pulled out a poison vial that had belonged to Yongryang and held it up for the elder. When the elder asked where he got it, Yongmyong said he must already know, and that it had to make him nervous. He tossed the vial at the elder and accused him of giving it to his granddaughter. If it had been an ordinary poison bottle, maybe no one would have noticed, but this was one of the clan's 10 great poisons. The fire dragon poison. The brigade leader immediately asked if that was really what was inside the vial, and it was. The brigade leader and his men were left speechless. That was why they had sensed such fierce, burning energy. The vial had even broken through the third elder's seal. Yongmyong said the elder had treated one of the clan's 10 poisons like a tool for private greed, as if burying it with the burial brigade meant nothing. The brigade leader replied that, as far as he knew, it was deadly enough to bring down even top martial artists. And since the formula had been lost, the 10 poisons were even more dangerous now. They were worth more than any treasure the clan owned. Using fire dragon poison for personal gain deserved the harshest punishment. One elder shouted, asking what he was trying to say. Another barked that no one had the right to talk about punishing a clan elder and demanded they seize him at once. Myung shot back, asking why that man hadn't been seized already just because he held the title of elder. He declared that the elder would not escape clan law or die with honor. At the very least, his granddaughter would be waiting for him in the next life. Then he let the fire dragon poison burn him alive. He said every elder there was rotten, and asked what right they had to judge who should hold the clan leader's seat. As for where he would stand, he would decide that himself. The brigade leader and his soldiers saw how calm he stayed even before the elders, and for the first time they thought the clan's future might change. But the elder leader demanded to know what he was doing and how he dared kill a clan elder. Myung then turned to the grand elder, Tang Srokjang, and asked if he knew his disciple had put the whole clan at risk. The elder demanded an explanation, and Myung asked if he truly understood what had happened. He said the man was a spy from the Dark Moon sect, and asked how none of them found that strange. After all, they had heard the Dark Moon Sword sect invaded the competition grounds. The elder accused him of siding with the enemy and demanded proof. Myung said he would provide it, then looked at Tengji. He told everyone that Tengji was the one witness who could prove the elder was a spy. He explained that earlier, inside Myung's isolation hall, he fought Tang Gukran and got that evidence. As everyone could see, those wounds were not caused by poison or stealth arts. They came from a sword technique, though he hadn't realized it at the time. Maybe it wasn't a twin sword style, but the elder argued that this was still only a guess. But people began pressing him, because it wasn't just a guess. Someone had already seen Makinjuk use that sword art from a distance. Everyone had also noticed that most of his victims were horribly cut apart. The young man added that before the elder tried to kill him, he had admitted he was a spy and even gave his name, Mak Injuk. At once, she also realized that name belonged to the discarded bastard people whispered about, the servant woman's child. Myung told Tung Gi-jil he planned to use him as a witness, but he never thought the man would step up on his own first. The man said Myung had saved his life, so it was only fair to repay him. Myung thanked him and said that made things easier. The spy realized the boy truly had a witness, but that hardly mattered now. If this kept going, he wouldn't be safe either, so he shouted for Elder Jomyong to stop that man. The brigade warriors started wondering why Elder Paryong still hadn't been punished, but the young man kept walking toward the elder and told him not to rush. He couldn't just let this pass, not when Taing Gukran might have become clan leader and handed the Taing clan over to the Dark Moonsword sect. The young clan leader thought the elder had gone way too far. Once Yomyong got ready to strike, the elder couldn't do a thing. In the next instant, his arm was cut off so fast, no one even saw it happen. The Dark King and the brigade leader were shaken as Yomyong carried out judgment. Then Yomyong said there was no proof of collusion, so the punishment would stop there. The elder thanked him for sparing him, still stunned because the slash had been too quick for him to follow. But just when everyone thought Yomyong had shown mercy, the elder released a poison. It was the clan's formless poison. No color, no smell, no taste, and deadly. It wasn't the full perfected version, but the elder had spent over half his life making it, and he believed no one could survive it, no matter how strong they were. All he wanted was revenge, without leaving any evidence. Yomyong watched him kneel, stared him in the eyes, and asked if that was really all he had. The elder started to wonder if Yomyong had noticed. Then his hand was cut off too. No one knew what to make of it. Yomyong had spoken of mercy, then acted like someone already claiming the clan leader's seat. A few told the others to wait and see what was going on. Then everyone looked toward the elder's severed hand. Lying beside it was a small poison bottle. Yomyong told the elder he had caught on the moment he pretended to beg and tried to slip in a poison attack. To him, it was shameless for an elder to ask the clan leader for mercy, then try to kill him. That alone broke clan law, so he said a traitor should be judged harshly and began enforcing discipline. After making his authority clear, the whole crowd stayed silent. He reminded the elders that rank did not put them above Tang clan law. If any of them used their position to break it again, he would punish them himself. He said the clan had grown so weak that it could fall apart at any time. Then he vowed to protect its people from the threat of evil sects if they accepted him as the true leader of the Tang clan. At Tang Jaehye's residence, word reached the young leader's mother. She could barely believe he had really won the competition, brought down the elders, and forced them to accept him. She also couldn't forget that moment when everyone in the Tower of Stealth and Poison knelt before him. She said he had grown into someone admirable and wished Longriang were alive to hear it. He would have been proud. Yongmyang wanted to run straight to his mother and tell her he was alive, but too much work was waiting. The Dark King announced that, by the clan leader's order, everything from that point on would be handled in the tower. The elders clearly didn't like it, but none dared complain out loud. Everyone could see the clan leader was talented, but his experience was still limited. Even so, only Elder O openly raised that issue. The elders wanted to use his youth and inexperience as an excuse to keep their power. agreeing their point had some merit. Myung said he would decide later who would serve as regent. But once the matter was investigated, the third elder's smuggling of fire dragon poison proved true. As it also came out that poison stocks had gone missing, people slowly began doubting the elder's ability to manage the clan. Control of the 10 poisons was then moved to the Tower of Fertility and Poison, stripping the elders of most of their power. Since Myung had no interest in taking direct control of the military, the elders would still oversee those forces. But after one elder died, the direct command force and the sovereign spirit force no longer had anyone over them, so both groups were merged into the shadow troops and placed under the Tower of Fertility and Poisons. Myung added that anyone unhappy with their treatment should forget about special privileges. If they neglected their duties with weak excuses or caused trouble with the outside warriors already there, they would be punished hard. A few days later, the elders heard that the clan leader had summoned Jigo. He hadn't expected Myung to use proper authority to tear down the Council of Elders. He knew that one wrong word now could cost him dearly. Myung asked if he had been so busy that he forgot about them. Then he said there was something he wanted to ask everyone. Jigo could barely recognize number 28. The young man asked if they were shocked because of the clothes he was wearing. Everyone there was upset. He had not even been officially confirmed as clan leader yet, but he was already acting like the clan belonged to him. Jigo asked what he wanted. Myung replied that he had heard Jigo's defensive formations were excellent. With one of those set up, unwanted guests wouldn't even get inside and would just wander around outside. So he wanted that same formation installed there to keep accepted evil trash out. Jigo was startled and said the main house barrier couldn't be installed without the leader's approval. He quickly added that the formations also needed precious heirlooms passed down through the family. Myung didn't like that answer and suddenly attacked, dropping the others in the room. Terrified, Jigo rushed to say he'd install the formation, then glanced back at his fallen companions. He asked why the clan leader was doing this, and Myung answered that he already knew about his deal with Tang Yongryang. Even though Jigo had the power to stop the Black Moonsword sect's invasion, he chose not to. He had planned to pretend it wasn't his problem. Myung said he wouldn't waste more words. Jigo would install a defense like his clans around the Tang main residence. When Jigo tried to answer, Myung cut him off and said this was not a small issue. Had he forgotten the clan's rules? The Tang clan repaid an offense 10 times over. That, he said, was why the elders had ended so badly. He would count to 3, and if Jigo still refused, he would go to him personally and make Jigo Changqin answer for everything. What came after that? Jigo could imagine for himself. Before the count even reached 3, Jigo shouted at 2 that he would obey. He begged forgiveness and asked that his clan members be spared. Myung said he expected him to move fast. Then he explained why he hadn't called his own people sooner. Tang Mirio wondered why the clan leader had summoned him. Hearing himself called clan leader, Myung laughed and thought they didn't need to be that formal. That helped Tang Ijin relax, and he put his feet up on the table. Tang Yuri then asked why they had been called. Myung told her he had just named her father the new general commander. He said her father was clearly capable enough for the job. Shutting down complaints wasn't hard, he added, but it would become a problem if his praise turned out to be false. If her father played favorites, ignored his duties, or secretly took funds, that would be dealt with. He asked her to help her father settle into the role, though he believed the man would prove himself just fine. After that, he said he also wanted to know about Mirio and Ijin, which was why he had called them. Myung explained that if there were highly skilled people being pushed aside because they lacked ties to the elders, they should speak now. He wanted such people under his protection, since it made no sense to keep elder loyalists close to him. Ijin said nothing, so Myung asked if that meant there was no one in the medicine hall connected to him. Ijin hesitated, unsure if he should bring up the medicine hall king. The matter also involved Myung, especially what had happened to his father. The people tied to poisoning the young master's father came from the medicine hall king's side. Tang Mirio said maybe he had heard wrong. Surely the medicine hall king couldn't be involved. Tang Yuri slammed the table in anger and demanded to know how anyone dared touch the clan leader's family. She said she'd deal with them herself. But Myung told Ijin to keep talking. The medicine hall king was so cut off inside the main house that even the council of elders couldn't interfere. All poison and medical research was done there, and it funded itself by treating patients. It also supplied the money the clan needed, and the head of the medicine hall king was Ijin's grandfather. Back when his grandfather led it, one man visited him every day, the father of Tang Myung. After the Bright Sky Demon Lord's invasion, resentment toward the medicine hall king grew, but Myung's father always defended it from slander. The problem was that he had no internal energy, so if someone attacked him with internal force, he couldn't drive it out and would suffer serious internal damage. Even so, his father kept standing up and fighting. That was when things got much worse. At the time, the vice leader of the medicine hall was Tang Il. He got into an argument with Myung's father after being caught insulting his wife. Instead of apologizing, Tang Il tried to use martial arts after losing the argument, and only the grandfather stopped him. Because of that, Tang Il was removed from consideration as the next leader. Hearing this, Yomyong realized Tang Il had held a grudge and poisoned his father. After that, he killed the young master's father, started taking over the medicine hall, and according to Aijin, also poisoned his own grandfather and locked him away. Tang Mirio was shocked that something like this had happened in secret. Being isolated was no excuse. Aijin said the poison had left his grandfather out of his mind, so even if he told others the truth, no one would help him. He joined the competition, but during those 3 years, he still couldn't get rid of the people who knew about the incident. Now he wanted to check his grandfather's condition, but he was too scared to go. He also found it hard to apologize to the clan leader, and even harder to point out the talented people Yomyong was asking about in the medicine hall. Yomyong asked if he knew why the vice leader had kept his grandfather alive. Killing him would have been easier. If Yomyong was right, then the medicine hall held a hidden branch that even the elders didn't know about. It involved an internal pill made from a mythical creature said to live in lava, the 10,000-year fire carp. Yuri said the name sounded familiar. Mirio, though, looked like he had never heard of it. Yomyong asked what the final internal pill really was, and learned it was much more than something that just boosts internal energy. About 100 years ago, people said the lesser lord of Blazing Sun Palace took that pill and reached the fire realm because of it. That story was passed down for generations. But the poison inside it was brutal. If someone took it without removing the poison first, 9 out of 10 would die. So he asked if anyone besides his grandfather could keep the pill's power while clearing the poison. Crying, Aijin said yes. The current leader wanted to swallow the complete pill and rise to the fire realm. After that, he planned to leave the clan with his followers and start a clan of his own. Everyone knew that was basically rebellion. Yomyong realized the realm that man wanted without true understanding was the fire realm. Aijin said they had been together for 3 years, but he never noticed any of this because the man hid it so well. Yomyong thanked him, knowing how hard it must have been to reveal all of that. Still, he had one more question. If he drove out the current people in the King of Medicine Hall and restored his grandfather, could the hall run properly again like before? And if the real problem was only his poisoned grandfather, could that be fixed? Aijin said it could. He believed he was no less capable than the current leader. If they gathered a few key medical experts, he could teach the rest. Yomyong said that was all he needed to hear. Then he turned to Tang Mirio, saying he'd hear her story after settling the matter of the King of Medicine Hall first. He was leaving right away. Aijin asked if he was sure, since he still hadn't gone to see his mother after returning from the main house. Yomyong said she would understand. A clan leader couldn't let a traitor walk free. More than that, she would never want him to stop after hearing what had happened to someone close. Before leaving, he declared that the King of Medicine Hall as they knew it would be wiped out. Meanwhile, at the King of Medicine Hall, the man in charge heard that Yongryang's son had become the new clan leader. He figured anything tied to his crimes happened before the boy was born, so there was no way he would know. Even so, he was uneasy because Tang Aijin still hadn't come back. In the end, he decided his own life mattered most. He could kill Aijin whenever he wanted, but the real issue was the internal pill. To absorb it fully and reach the fire realm, he needed that cursed old man to talk. Even if the elder regained his mind though, he would never help. And if he tried removing the poison from the capsule himself and failed, he could ruin the whole pill. So he needed another way. While he was thinking, a loud commotion broke out. His men rushed in, shouting that the clan leader was causing chaos. They said Yongmyong was tearing through the entire hall, and people were begging him to stop. Yongmyong asked Aijin if he had found him, but he hadn't. Aijin said he searched the whole hall and found no trace of his grandfather. Furious, he demanded to know where his grandfather was. The people there only traded nervous looks and stayed quiet. Yongmyong warned them not to lie in front of him and told Brigade Leader Wonjin to take care of it. Wonjin solved it fast. Heads hit the ground. Yongmyong asked who they thought they were fooling with those guilty looks and told the rest not to test his patience. They could keep pretending if they wanted, but he only needed one person to talk. Soon, someone admitted the current leader had locked the former leader away in Nok. Hearing that, Aijin panicked. Nok was used to isolate people with suspected infection, and the freezing cold only made things worse. Yongmyong said he and Aijin would go in. He ordered Brigade Bango to clear the place and wait at the entrance. Even then, people begged for mercy. Bango gave them the same mercy they had shown Aijin's grandfather. As they entered, Yongmyong realized Nok ran deep into the earth. Aijin pointed out the entrance and prayed his grandfather was still alive, though he feared they were too late. Yongmyong had already sensed him and told Aijin not to panic. He had found him. Aijin rushed to the cell, calling out to his grandfather. Yongmyong told him to step back and cut through the bars with a technique. The moment Aijin saw his grandfather's condition, he broke down in tears. When he left for the competition, the old man had not looked like this. Yongmyong told him to calm down and asked what poisons had been used. Aijin answered, subjugative poison and thunder madness poison. The second one attacked the mind. It was meant to drive a person insane, not kill them. And once too much time passed, there was almost no proper treatment. Yongmyong didn't seem worried. To him, it was still just poison. He had a companion hold the old man steady and started using universal poison absorption. It would pull every bit of poison from the elder's body. Aijin's face lit up when his grandfather's hand began to show signs of life. Myung carefully controlled it, trying to remove only the poison without hurting the elder's weak body. Aijin saw his breathing steady and his color begin to return. Once his grandfather looked better, Myung told Aijin to help him sit up. The old man weakly asked where he was. When he opened his eyes, he recognized Aijin, but when he looked at the young clan leader, he mistook him for his father. After they explained everything, he understood that his son's child now led the clan and had come to save him because of the bond he once had with his father. In tears, the elder was moved that the child who never even got to see his father's face because of him was now the one saving him. He could only wish the father were still alive to see how fine his son had become. Though weak, he said he wanted to devote himself to serving the clan leader. Myung agreed and draped his cloak over the elder to shield him from the cold. He also said he was there to put the new leadership in order with the elder and Aijin. Then they stepped out, where people were waiting. The current leader of the King of Medicine Hall stared in shock that the old man was standing again and demanded to know how the clan leader could treat the hall's members so ruthlessly. He argued that the King of Medicine Hall was the one funding the Tang clan. Myung asked if he still planned to keep acting after everything that had been uncovered, then said those words would be enough for his last. He turned to the elder and asked whether he had any final words for the man. The elder only shook his head, so Myung said he would end it quickly. The former leader of the King of Medicine Hall tried to run before punishment could reach him, but he barely moved before his body locked up. Myung told him the poison was called Heart Splitter, and Aijin had made it. He added that Aijin's skill was already enough to replace him. Then again, he probably couldn't even hear anymore. The others who had backed the former leader scattered, trying to save themselves, but the Banhui Brigade handled them. Once it was over, Myung left with Aijin and his grandfather. News spread through the clan at once that the King of Medicine Hall had fallen. People said the clan couldn't survive without it, and cutting off its source of money was a huge mistake. Then he was asked if he planned to take the pill now. Since someone like Tengu might appear, he couldn't just leave it lying around. Myung thanked him and said he would keep it for now. He was told that if he wasn't using it right away, it should be stored carefully. Even at a glance, the poison on it was so strong it could be seen with the naked eye. Throwing away something that precious would be crazy. Even standing near it, he could feel the fierce fire poison expected from a lava creature. Still, it was nothing compared to the poison of the demonic fire dragon he had faced before. He knew that if a normal person touched it unrefined, their insides could burn away. The poison was so strong that he decided it would be better to study it further, especially the 10 poisons. Watching the refining process, he could clearly sense the spirit's power. While he was lost in thought, someone knocked on the door. A voice said it was his mother and asked if she could come in. He told her to enter. When the door opened, he finally saw his mother again. She said she never thought she'd be able to return there. She was proud, saying she was truly lucky to have a son like him. He told her the place had always been hers, and she could come in anytime she wanted. Looking at her, he thought she was still beautiful. He also wondered how much she must have worried all this time. She pulled him into a tight hug and said she was so happy he came back safe. He smiled and told her of course he did. He was her son. In his past life, it had been different. He had no one to miss him, no one to think about as he faced death, and no one to share joy with, even at the very end. That lonely life had been full of regret. He remembered the time he was forced to bring her away. Everyone around them had been crying, and every face was familiar. What he carried then was the box in his hands now. He told her he had brought it as a gift. When she opened it, she immediately recognized it. A 10,000-year Fireclaw internal pill. She knew exactly what it was, and now all that was left was to use it. But she told him he should take it himself, since he wanted to free the clan, but he told her the inner pill had already lost its use for him and asked her to hold it. She didn't get it. Why say it was useless now? He explained there was nothing left for that pill to improve in him. Then, holding her hand, he showed her that he had already reached the fire realm. She was overjoyed to learn he had truly made it there. For her, that was something worth celebrating. He told her he wanted her to live a long life, for her sake and for his father's too. Asking her to stay by his side and watch him grow, he offered the pill again. Since its power was fading little by little, they had to act fast. She smiled and said she couldn't turn down a gift her son had brought with such care. Then she asked if he knew what people used to call her when she was young. Back then, she was known as the greatest beauty in Sichuan, the poisonous phoenix. Right after that, she released her full power. She explained that the title Poisonous Phoenix was given only to the clan's most famous talents. It amused her. She hadn't seen him this stunned in a long time. She teased that even if she wasn't at his level, she could still surprise him. After raising her power, she swallowed the inner pill and entered cultivation at once. He was still in shock. She had hidden this much strength all along and had been training by herself. At the fire realm, even tiny movements can be sensed, so hiding power should be impossible. Yet somehow, she had concealed it even from him. With one look, he knew she had already reached the level he'd been at before releasing his own power. Maybe his mother could break past her limits too. That also meant trouble was coming. Absorbing the inner pill was simple. She drew out its spiritual energy and guided it into her body to make it her own. She would keep repeating that until all of it was absorbed. But she soon realized she probably couldn't take in all of it. The pill's spirit was fading too fast, and she didn't know how to stop it. Before long, it would vanish before even half was absorbed. Then she felt a hand touch her shoulder. It was her son. He said he would help guide her, because enlightenment doesn't come from thinking alone. He told her to take in what was around her, study it, think it through, and narrow it down. Then it could become a path to enlightenment. This time, he would give her a little push. That was when she felt Youngmyeon's energy. She sensed him touching the inner pill and blending with it, and in that moment understood the Tang clan's radiant heart technique of vital blue poison. Spirituality was just pure energy. Since it could change into anything, she didn't need to absorb it little by little. She could turn it into a form she understood and take it in directly, without going through the full cultivation process. After changing the energy, she guided it back into herself. Honestly, she really had been blessed with an amazing son. With his hand still on her shoulder, he felt the moment she finished and stepped into the fire realm. At the Tower of Stealth and Poison, the elders had gathered. Most of them were annoyed about being called in so early, only to be kept waiting. One elder grumbled to the King of Darkness, asking how much longer the clan leader planned to make them sit there. Even if the leader had summoned them, this was too much. The King of Darkness, uncle to the young clan leader, tried to calm everyone and said he should arrive soon. Not long after, word came that the leader was on his way. The room fell silent. When Youngmyeon entered, he thanked them for coming so early and said he had called them there to hear something important. An elder immediately asked what it was. He said the clan needed an interim leader until he came of age, but it wouldn't be any of the elders. That stunned them. If not an elder, then who? Right then, the chosen person stepped in. Everyone stared, trying to figure out who it was, but the King of Darkness knew at once. It was the poisonous phoenix. The elders were horrified. Decades had passed. How was she here now? The clan leader, son of the poisonous phoenix, declared that no one was more fit for the role. After being blamed for the invasion of Magwanchun a decade earlier and losing her place as leader, she now returned to make things right, presenting herself as Tang Jai-hai. The night before the announcement, she was happy to have reached the fire realm, but not so happy about the filth being forced out of her body. It was so unpleasant that she even snapped at one of the servants. Still, having this much power was something she wasn't used to yet. That would come with time. Reaching the fire realm also helped her understand her son much better. She had heard that only the leader of the Black Death Alliance had ever reached that level. Now, after all this time, she felt she could finally speak with her son about many things. He congratulated her, and she thanked him, saying it was all because of him before asking him to sit down. They talked, shared old stories, and enjoyed a rare peaceful moment together. Then she asked how he had entered the fire realm. He wanted to tell her the truth, but that truth came from memories of his past life. So he decided to use the competition as an excuse and hide behind one of the poisons. When she mentioned the winner had received dragonfire poison, he said that was what he drank. She called it reckless, but he only smiled and pointed out that he was clearly fine. He said that after absorbing the poison and reaching enlightenment, he entered the fire realm. Even so, she wasn't sure that kind of enlightenment should be possible. Then she brought up something else. It was about the servant helping her bathe, the one who mentioned he was tearing down the King of Medicine Hall. Since it also involved his father, he felt it was best to be honest. He told her guess was right. Over tea, he explained everything. She understood the whole situation and admitted she had already suspected as much. She said she had her doubts before, and that Aijin must have suffered too. Then she told her son she had a request. After losing her husband, she had lived in the clan like a dead person, terrified of losing her only son too. But she had not simply done nothing. If he allowed it, no one would ever dare covet that place again. She wanted to protect it herself. Back in the present, she stepped into the meeting hall, and every eye turned to her just like years ago. Her brother, the King of Darkness, looked thrilled to see her walk in again. Her son asked everyone to offer sincere congratulations to his mother, Tang Jai-hai, then announced for all to hear that she would lead the Tang clan. One elder was horrified that she would serve as interim leader. She thanked them for coming and said she would only hold the position until the true leader was ready, because that true leader had trusted her with it. She planned to rebuild the clan's damaged foundation. With that, the meeting began, and from then on, Tang Jai-hai moved boldly. She renamed the King of Medicine Hall after its collapse, and Tang Hoyol was assigned as a healer alongside his grandson. Yuri's father became general manager, and his first order was a full investigation into Gazan. Tang Jihyuk was removed as head of the Tower of Poison Stealth, and anyone abusing their position was also cast out, elder or not. All of it happened in just a few days, and he couldn't help feeling proud of his mother. Thanks to her, the clan's inner problems were finally settled. At first, he only wanted a quiet life with his mother, but things kept changing around him. Friends he could trust, guards loyal to him, and more Tang clan members gathering at his side. Elsewhere, someone asked to speak with the leader. She wanted to discuss Mok Injuk. She said he was famous and known for his strength. Yo So-chong, leader of the Transforming Heart sect. Her request was simple: destroy them before Tang could recover its former name. But the Black Death Alliance leader, Yukil Jun, asked why he should. Yo So-chong argued that Mok Injuk had been as troublesome as ever, even after being warned to stay away from the Tang clan because it would be useful one day. Instead, he disobeyed and attacked them. Worse, he had stood against the leader's authority. So in the end, it was better that he died by the leader's hand, because if he had returned alive, punishment was waiting for him anyway. Back at his place, Yomyong looked out over his home and thought about how many people he now had to protect. There was a time when just staying healthy was hard because of the way he was born. Now, to stop anyone from using or coveting the Tang clan, he had grown much stronger. Whether it was the Black Death Alliance or anyone else, no one would be allowed to harm the Tang clan again. In the Black Death clan, word spread that the Tang clan had a new leader. More than that, it was the same person who had killed Mok Injuk, a man not easily beaten. He told her to send a letter to the clan, inviting them to Sichuan for the coming meeting. The head of the Tang clan would be invited as well. Later, Yomyong thanked his mother for everything she had done to fix the clan from within. She admitted she had been nervous taking charge again after so long. He told her she had done great, but there was one thing bothering him. She asked why he had hidden his power like last time, saying he must have noticed because he had gone through it himself. He admitted her control was impressive, but now that she had to keep her strength hidden, she said it wasn't just about hiding power. This was the Tang clan's secret art, the Vein Concealment Seal. She wanted her son to learn how to hide his strength too, but he asked why he even needed that. She said the answer was complicated. Since the creator of that art was one of the Tang clan's ancestors, she had to start with his story. In a village in Sichuan, a plague broke out. There was no famine, yet people kept dying. Out of fear, they burned bodies without proper funerals. Soon the whole village was infected and waiting to die, except for one person. A 10-year-old boy was the only one untouched. No one had time to think calmly. To the sick villagers, that boy looked like the source of the plague, like a cursed child. Driven out, he had nowhere to go and hid in a cave from the rain. He survived by stealing food left at the village shrine to stop the plague, living alone day by day. By the third day, no one came to the shrine anymore. He was the only one left alive. He kept wondering why he alone had survived, but he didn't have long to think about it. Before long, a strange group found him. They saw he had a natural talent for poison. It was the poisonous Moon Shadow Clan, one of the cruelest assassin groups in Urim. They kidnapped people and turned them into tools. To keep them from escaping, they fed them poison and only gave the antidote on schedule. The boy grew into a killer and watched his companions die whenever the antidote came too late. That was when he learned the plague in his village had been caused by that poison clan. He finally understood he had never brought the plague. From then on, he trained to become stronger. No matter how deadly the job was, he took it and finished it perfectly. He even killed absolute masters, shocking everyone. His feats raised the clan's name so high that he was named one of the 5 great annihilators and told he could ask for any reward, but he wanted nothing. After fighting so many absolute masters, he had already reached a high level. From the clan's martial arts, he created his ultimate move, the first storm of 10,000 heavenly blossoms. Then, in a single night, the poisonous Moon Shadow clan vanished. His mother said that later, his descendants settled in Sichuan and became today's Tang clan. Even now, the world remembers him as the invisible guest. Young Mian acted like he was asleep, already bored by the story. His mother pinched his cheeks lightly to make him listen. He admitted he had never heard that story before. She told him it mattered because it was tied to the Vein Concealment Seal. The Poison Clan had many Fire Realm masters, including the 5 great annihilators and even their sect leader. She said he was only partly right about the storm of 10,000 heavenly blossoms. It wasn't just a hidden weapon skill, it was a technique that controlled energy. That caught his attention, and he asked if she meant it truly used energy, not just weapons. In Fire Realm battles, energy clashes with energy. Normal hidden weapons can't pierce the protective energy around a Fire Realm master's body. He realized that no matter how many weapons were thrown, they wouldn't matter. Still, he thought keeping that much energy active all the time had to be hard. His mother could tell that was exactly what he was thinking. She said the answer was the Vein Concealment Seal. Its core was simple: compress the internal energy moving through the meridians and pack it into one of the 12 main meridians. That stopped the energy from flowing normally and wrapped it in true energy, enough to fool even a Fire Realm master who could read energy flow. Still, with enough skill and experience, that trick could be broken down. The true energy guarding that stored power twisted together and formed a new shield around the body. This shield was called Dragon Scale. It was said to be tougher than normal protective energy, almost like real scales. Hearing that, he felt like he had just learned what a real dragon was. She went on. This art wasn't only for cleansing energy or defense. If she released the power sealed in all 12 meridians over many years, she could briefly use more than 10 times her normal internal energy. Yomyong then asked if the storm of 10,000 heavenly blossoms needed that seal to be released first. She said yes. Parts of the method had been passed down with the vein concealment seal, but some were lost. The spoken instructions disappeared too when the two elders died suddenly. Even so, she believed her son could master the complete storm of 10,000 blossoms. She told him she was proud to call him her son. He figured the son of the poisonous phoenix could master anything, so he accepted the vein concealment seal from her. Still, he thought drinking poison was the better way. What others feared as poison felt like a miracle medicine to him. He was about to ask Ijin to make some poison when someone suddenly arrived. A servant announced that his friends were here and urgently wanted to see him. Tang Mirio rushed in, crying and begging for help. Worried, he asked what had happened. She said that if this kept up, her sister would die. He asked if her sister was really dying and said she should have called a doctor. But Mirio said they had already seen several doctors. Medicine and normal treatment couldn't fix this. He asked what she expected him to do and whether her sister had internal injuries. She explained that the 9 yin had cut through her meridians, leaving her in a fatal state. In the Northern Sea Ice Palace, martial artists practiced ice arts, but those who couldn't use ice arts often ended up with deadly conditions. He asked if her family came from those people. Then he mentioned hearing that descendants of the old Northern Sea Ice Palace had settled in Sichuan. She said one of them had married into the Tang clan, which was the strongest clan at the time. But the Tang clan focused on poison and hidden weapons, so no one practiced ice arts or kept that knowledge. Their ancestral ice martial arts were lost long ago, and her sister's illness was treated like a family disease. Yongmian said he understood. Just then, they were told they had arrived at her home. Mirio said her sister had gotten even worse while they were on the way. She cried out for her sister to open her eyes, but the girl already seemed to be turning into ice. The cold in the room was enough to freeze everything, and Yongmian saw it was worse than he expected. He told Mirio to listen carefully because he couldn't promise her sister would survive. That terrified Mirio. He explained that her sister had been fighting the cold with her innate energy, but she had finally reached her limit. Now she had shut everything down and forced all her energy into her veins. Mirio asked if there was any way to save her. He said there was one option: force the cold out of her body. But if her sister couldn't endure it, or if the cold overwhelmed her during the process, she could still die. He wanted to help, but this was his friend's family, and he couldn't take that risk lightly. So he left the choice to Mirio. She could keep looking for another way, or trust him and try this method. In tears, she said they had already tried everything else. She couldn't give up without trying this too. Even knowing it was dangerous for him, she knelt and begged him to save her sister. After taking a deep breath, he said they would begin. He warned them the treatment would be awkward because clothes blocked the flow of energy, so they had no choice. A little shame was better than death. Then he started drawing out the cold from the 9 meridians: mouth, heart, lungs, arms, legs, and the lower abdomen, one at a time. He had already cleared the cold above the neck and now had to work downward. One area made him hesitate, but he couldn't stop halfway. He placed his fingers on the soft spot and began pulling out the cold. The resistance grew stronger, and he could tell this wouldn't be easy. Tang Mirio worried he might freeze too, but he told her he was fine. He wanted to pull the yin energy from the upper meridians, but the cold had already gone past what a body could endure. If this kept up, he might freeze first. Then he thought that if this were poison, handling it would be easier, and that gave him an idea. He remembered what Ijin's grandfather once said: medicine and poison are basically the same. The dose is what changes one into the other. Even life-giving yang energy, like dragonfire poison or the 10,000-year fire carp, could become poison. So this bone-freezing cold could also be treated like poison. With that thought, he put his hand on the girl's abdomen and used the poison purification technique. This time, the art began absorbing the cold, and he smiled when it worked. Once part of the cold was removed, it fought back hard. But if it counted as poison, then he could simply devour it. The cold inside her body started fading. Slowly, she opened her eyes. Then she realized how exposed she was and saw a strange young man with his hand on her abdomen. Tang Mirio was overwhelmed. Her sister was awake again, even if both of them were embarrassed. She couldn't hold back her joy anymore, because she wasn't going to lose her sister. Realizing she was alive and seeing Mirio there, the two of them broke down in tears. As he finished removing the last of the cold, Mirio told her that this man had saved her life. Tang Mirio asked how much longer he needed to keep touching her sister, but her sister told him to stay focused and keep going. He fell deep into thought, amazed. This felt almost like a miracle cure. His body was surrounded by so much energy that a normal person could never take it all in. So he decided to use the chance to absorb the cold energy and open the blocked meridians. One meridian had already started filling with internal energy, and as more opened, he absorbed even more. In the end, he opened 4 meridians, far more than expected, and his internal energy grew to about 4 times what it was before. The process finally slowed, but that couldn't be helped. He figured he could finish later by drinking poison. When he opened his eyes, both sisters were staring at him, his hand still on the girl's body. Blushing, she told him not to worry. Her sister had explained everything, and she didn't know how to thank him. Just then, their father rushed in after hearing voices. He came in and saw his daughters with a young man, and one of them barely dressed. Furious, he challenged the clan leader to a fight, but the misunderstanding was quickly cleared up, and he learned the young master had been saving his daughter's life. Ashamed of what he'd assumed, the father said he didn't have words to express his thanks. Through tears, he explained that he had stayed there after falling in love with a Tang clan woman while running a trading company. His wife later died from a deadly illness, and he had spent everything trying to save his daughter too, but nothing worked. Now he was overjoyed because the young man had stepped in and helped her recover. He promised that from then on, if the leader ever needed him, he would come at once. Yongyang was worried about the trade situation, but decided to leave that for later. As the young leader was heading out, someone called his name. He turned and saw the young woman, now dressed properly, standing with her sister. She thanked him for saving her life and said her family would never forget what he had done. Yongyang turned red, not knowing how to react, while Tang Miryo was deeply grateful that her sister had been saved. The 2 sisters told him to stay safe and come visit again. She noticed he looked flustered and couldn't understand why, since the treatment had gone fine. Then the clan leader's sister and her friend teased that maybe he had enjoyed seeing her too much. Her sister blushed at once and denied it, saying she didn't think the leader felt that way about her. Tang Miryo told her that kind of reaction was normal. Most people would probably respond the same way. After all, she said, her sister was the prettiest, and even though the leader kept things hidden, she could tell from his face that he liked her too. As he left in a good mood, he kept thinking about what the girl's father had said about family. Before long, he was imagining marrying her and having children together. He even pictured grandchildren and growing old beside a beautiful woman. Just the thought made him nervous. For the first time, he imagined what a normal life might feel like, and hoped he'd get another chance to see her. The problem was what her father had said. The clan had declined, and the Black Death Alliance now controlled things and rarely entered the city. That alliance, led by Yugil Jun, still hadn't overthrown the Demon Lord, but as long as they stayed in Sichuan, a clash seemed unavoidable. Meanwhile, in Black Death Alliance territory, someone reported that the Tang clan was growing too fast to control. The woman listening just lay there eating an apple, acting like it had nothing to do with her. The leader's orders were absolute, and Hallmaster Simua, along with Ascendant Phoenix sect leader Yaninji, both agreed it was smarter to stay quiet until his anger passed. Still annoyed, she threw the apple so it nearly hit the messenger. She had heard the new leader and the clan leader had reached, or were close to, the Fire Realm, and all she'd been told was to wait. At her current level, she couldn't get revenge on Ma Qianhu herself, so she came up with another plan. If she couldn't move directly, she would send a letter to the Tang family. Just like the leader had said, she would invite the clan to the next meeting. She told herself she couldn't just sit still, and the leader would understand. Even now, she could still hear Ma Qianhu's screams. Her anger, she thought, would only fade after the Tang clan was wiped out. The messenger standing in front of that unstable woman could only shake in fear. He begged for his life, but she killed him anyway. Then she decided the Tang clan leader would be the next one to suffer by her hand. Elsewhere, the Munchin family was discussing what to do now that their side had lost power. The second elder, Tang Ma Yongxing, asked why they were singling him out. He looked toward the former Poison King, Tang Jiak, who questioned why this was even being brought up. The second elder blamed young Munchin for making enemies without knowing his opponent's strength. Because of him, his father was now tearing down everything he had spent a lifetime building. Munchin, in turn, thought his uncle was a pathetic old man who couldn't even face the clan leader. He was desperate to heal his arm and get revenge. While meeting with the other elders, they all saw how hard it would be to hold on to their power. In the end, they chose to leave the clan. Elsewhere, the young leader went to the clan's poison storage, where the extreme poisons and 10 poisons were kept. He remembered this place had originally been under the third elder's care, but after that elder's negligence, it had been handed over to him in the poison hall. A warrior offered him something to use before he entered. It was a poison-repelling pearl, meant to block the toxic air inside. The warrior explained that if you held it in your mouth, it filtered out most of the poison. He refused at first, but then heard several people, including the third elder, had used it before. Even though it was cleaned after each use, the young master still refused, saying poison wouldn't affect him. When the warrior kept pushing, he decided to teach him a lesson. Then he told the next guard to open the door because he was going in. Inside, everything was well preserved, probably because the whole warehouse was filled with poison. At once, he understood why the guard had been worried. An ordinary person would already be poisoned in here, but for someone who had mastered the poison refining heart technique, it felt almost clean, and he could already sense his inner strength recovering. He realized he was taking in poisons on the level of the 10 poisons, but clan rules said he couldn't use all 10. If the recipe still existed, he thought, maybe he could ask Aijin to make it. Then he suddenly felt something strange. One part of the airflow was warped. It felt like a formation was there. But a formation hidden in the poison store didn't match the usual Jigo clan style, so he decided to check it out. Going deeper, he found a hidden passage. A sealed forbidden talisman was written there. It wasn't a Jigo clan formation, it was the work of a mage. In his past life, his master had known several mages. His master chased the sword the way they chase sorcery, all trying to surpass human limits and reach immortality. He even remembered being thrown into a mage's formation as training, a place filled with beasts he couldn't name. Mages were usually selfish and only acted when something interested them, so why was one of their formations inside the Tang clan? They were obsessed with spirits and demons, always chasing immortality. He remembered once asking his master how to get along with them. His master had joked that you just beat them up every day for no reason. Eventually they'd beg to talk. Still, he doubted anyone in the Tang clan had handled things that way. So there had to be something in the clan that caught a mage's eye, something incredibly powerful. He had come hoping to find the 10 poisons recipe and grow stronger, but this was even more interesting. So he went in. The moment he entered, something inside noticed him. It understood at once that this wasn't some quiet visitor. It didn't know how much time had passed, but if enough had, then it wanted to be freed. Yomyong guessed that if it was guarded this heavily, it might be the Tang clan's lost 10 poisons. But the jar wrapped in talismans felt dangerous, and he wondered what kind of poison needed that much sealing. When he touched it, he felt a huge rebound from the spell. It was harder to break than most formations. He would have to cut each talisman exactly right, so he started slicing through the seals on the jar. One by one, he cut them all away. Sweat ran down his face, and the venomous vein stimulation technique was draining his inner strength. Normally, one strike would have been enough, but once the talismans came off, the poison inside grew much denser. With his hand on the lid, he prepared to see what was inside. Whatever was sealed there realized the talismans were gone. It had been ages since it had seen light. Then it burst out at once, shouting that it was free, but the Yom leader had no intention of letting it escape. He was going to catch it. It moved fast, and he knew he had to strike before it could attack first. Energy gathered around his arm. A snake-shaped figure made of energy praised his quick reaction and said it liked his spirit. As payment for freeing it, it promised to kill him without pain. Calling him foolish and rude, the creature revealed itself as the Jingo poison, the white-horned blue snake. He asked what a Jingo poison was. The snake was shocked. He blocked the sealed poison from reaching a vital point in an instant. She said she could melt his arm, and she liked his energy at first. Then she realized it was poison-absorbing aura and demanded to know why he had it and what tie he had to the Wandering Saint. The young man answered that the Wandering Saint was his ancestor. Right away, she begged him to stop absorbing her poison. If this kept going, she would be wiped out. Young Myung asked why he should. Was she only changing her tune because she was losing? He planned to absorb every bit of it. Realizing he truly meant to destroy her, the snake hurriedly told him to wait. She had an offer. She called it a deal. If he spared her, she would become his guardian spirit. All she wanted was freedom from the seal. Young Myung asked what that even meant, and the snake explained that having her as a guardian spirit would help him a lot. She pointed out that his internal energy was already rising from her poison, so this was a great bargain. Young Myung had to admit it. This poison was on a whole different level from the 10,000-year fire carp's inner pill or the dragon fire poison. A guardian spirit like her could keep giving him poison whenever he needed it. That was better than draining it all at once. Even so, he said he had no interest in sparing an enemy. If he needed poison, he could find it somewhere else. The snake kept begging for mercy, saying she had spent hundreds of years trapped there, staring at a wall. Trying to look cute, she promised to obey him as his guardian spirit and insisted they could make this work. Young Myung finally said he would trust her this once. The snake quickly asked if that meant yes. He made one thing clear. If she tried anything, he would destroy her on the spot. She agreed at once and promised there would be no trouble. Then Young Myung asked what he had to do, since he knew nothing about guardian spirits. The snake said he didn't need to do much. The method was called a spiritual binding seal. If he held her, the spirit would bind to his soul and become his guardian spirit. The snake dropped into his hand, and Young Myung completed the binding. Outside, the warriors feared the people inside might already be dead, and imagined how badly they'd be punished. Still, they hesitated because no one had ordered them to enter. At last, one of them grabbed a pearl, deciding he'd deal with the punishment later. He put it in his mouth, covered his face with cloth, and went in after the young master. When he entered, he saw light wrapped around Young Myung. The others shouted in confusion, and the whole place started shaking. The 8th asked if the leader was safe and what that strange noise around the clan head was. Yeomyung realized it was the aura of a dragon-scale guardian spirit. It was different from a normal one because the poisonous snake had transformed, filling all 12 meridians. From then on, he would have to control that power, and everyone's attention was now on him. His guardian spirit asked if he really needed to care about the people below, saying the wandering saint was showing himself openly. Instead, Yeomyung flicked it with 2 fingers to teach it some manners. After that, it explained that no one could see it unless he allowed it, especially with an aura this strong. He told the spirit it was still annoying. This time, he just wanted to live a normal life. Hearing that, the guardian spirit reacted like it had come back from the dead. Then it asked if he really could do that. After all, there had to be a reason he inherited the wandering saint's power, just like his ancestor. Yeomyung asked if it had once been enslaved, but the spirit clearly didn't want to talk about it. Still, it admitted it had been worked until death. Then a sorcerer trapped it and sealed it in a jar. Looking at Yeomyung, the guardian felt there was a reason he was connected to that sorcerer. After all, it was only a spirit that many sorcerers wanted as a guardian, and his ancestor had once helped its side. Yeomyung figured his ancestor might have been a lot like his master. Then he started thinking about what the spirit said, that maybe it had some greater purpose. He couldn't be sure, but it seemed possible. Just then, a brigade warrior rushed in and said they had to leave at once. There had been an attack by the evil faction near the main house in Sichuan. Yeonso was carrying his master, who looked badly hurt, and they were surrounded by several enemies. The riders circled them and demanded to know why men from the Orthodox sect were there. The master told his disciple to leave him behind and run. He would handle the rest. But the disciple knew they were facing hundreds from the evil faction, led by Palace Lord Zhang Tichen. Their pursuers said they had seen him arrive in Chengdu, so it was obvious they were seeking the Tang clan's help. If they captured them and handed them over, they'd be rewarded with top martial arts. At that moment, the Tang clan leader arrived with brigade members. They saw the master and disciple in yellow and guessed they were from the righteous faction, so the others had to be from the evil side. The Tang group said to hear the righteous men out. They might be guests. Looking around, the disciple realized the rough warriors on guard had come to help. Seeing the badly injured man he carried, one of them told everyone to step back. Then the brigade leader said he would handle the wounded man. Gyunso asked if they shouldn't help fight, since more than 200 enemies were chasing them. The brigade leader thanked him and said there was no need to worry. If he doubted it, he could stay and watch. One of the evil men glared at the leader and asked who he thought he was to block their path. He was told this was the man who won the Tang clan competition and returned as the new clan leader. Even then, the man wasn't scared. He laughed, saying the leader just looked like a pretty boy. Was he really planning to fight him? That kind of confidence was pure arrogance. He yelled that they had only been spared because of their leader's mercy. Yeomyung only smiled and said they started this, so they had no right to complain. The next second, they began dropping one after another. Yeomyung had already unleashed a rain of needles at them. The Tang side shouted for their leader to show no mercy. The enemy would be wiped out fast. Taking more needles, Yeomyung said he'd destroy them all first. Their band leader hit the ground with a needle stuck in his skull, and the others could only stare as the poisoned needle pierced him. Yeomyung raised another volley. In moments, the rain of needles struck the rest as well. The surviving band members thought it was insane. Then Yeomyung realized he had attacked so fast he never coated the needles with poison. His guardian spirit told him it didn't matter. The needles had already absorbed his poison, and very few people in the world could survive that. Looking at the spirit, he realized it might be even more useful than he first thought. Hyunseo watched in disbelief at the clan leader's skill. The others were just as stunned by how quickly the enemy fighters had been erased. Everyone said the Tang clan was declining, yet no one mentioned they had a monster like this. The enemy tried to steady themselves, saying it was fine. It was only one person. Even if that kid had reached the fire realm, he couldn't keep using a move like that forever. So they ordered everyone forward to bring him down. Charging the leader, one man warned this would be his end. As he struck, he mocked him, asking where all that confidence had gone. He regretted it instantly. Yeomyung caught the sword barehanded and shattered it. He thought Dragon's Scale worked well, while the enemy stood stunned that his weapon had been blocked by a hand. A moment later, the broken blade pieces burst out like a storm of 10,000 celestial blossoms. Hyunseo thought the Tang clan had fallen, but now he knew he was wrong. Their power was still terrifying. He believed that if they joined forces against the Black Death Alliance, just as Sabok had planned, they might have a chance. Then someone noticed the disciple was still standing there, but he was only staring in awe at the young master's power. The Tang clan leader said they would talk more at the main house later. At that moment, he understood one thing clearly. They could never afford to make an enemy of the Tang clan. A few days earlier, on the outskirts of Sichuan, the two of them were eating at a small inn. That was when Hyunseo noticed Sabok seemed off. He was much more tense than usual. Then the leader of the Black Death Alliance walked in, saying he liked eating there because the place was pleasant. Hyunseo was shocked. The man had come right beside him, and he hadn't sensed a thing. That meant he was incredibly strong, so he asked who he was. Sabok quietly warned him that the man was from the Yu clan. After apologizing for interrupting their meal, the leader asked what two martial artists from the combined sect were doing in his territory. Hyunseo had only chosen that remote inn to avoid trouble with unorthodox factions. The leader then asked if they had business with the Alliance. Since someone at the Fire Realm had been sent, he figured it had to be serious. Sabok said they had no business with the Black Death Alliance, and asked if he had come alone. The leader asked what the issue was, if Sabok wanted, and if he was alone, they could settle it in a spar right there. Sabok replied that, believe it or not, he had lived twice as long as that young man. The Black Death Alliance leader mockingly asked if he was here to pay respects. Hyunseo could tell Sabok was more fired up than usual. He really was planning to fight, and the Alliance leader took it as arrogant boldness. Chomchang said he had crushed everyone with his own hands 10 years ago. If fighting was the only way Sabok would understand, they could move somewhere nearby and finish it quickly. Hyunseo worried about Sabok, but after hearing that, he couldn't just sit still. He said no one should stop him. He was going to show that reckless bastard that the martial arts of the joined sect were stronger, so he ended up clashing with the Black Death Alliance leader, and Yan Myung could tell right away this was unlike any fight he'd seen before. The others arrived after them. No one moved lightly around the Black Death Alliance leader. Once they reached the battleground, he got ready. Sabok immediately told him to stay out of it. The Alliance leader, though, stayed relaxed, almost eager to start. Hyunseo said the fight moved so fast his eyes couldn't follow. Even so, he could tell the sword art was no joke, powered by strong internal energy. It was a clever method, using resonating internal energy to push away an enemy's power. More than once, Hyunseo lost track of the clash between two Fire Realm fighters. In the end, he watched the Tang clan leader instead, because the fight itself was too fast to read. Then he heard the Alliance leader mock Sabok, saying this couldn't be all he had and telling him to back up all that bragging about energy. Sabok answered that he was about to show his true level. He was preparing the joint sect's supreme art, the real form of the demon sword technique. Sabok pressed harder and harder. For a moment, it looked like he might actually bring the man down. But when Hyunseo focused again, he realized Sabok was only the one attacking. The Alliance leader was blocking every strike at the last instant, like he was testing Sabok the whole time. Certain this would crush that smug attitude, Sabok unleashed the demon sword technique. The leader only laughed and asked if that was really how it was supposed to be used. He slipped past it with ease, even though Sabok thought the secret art had finished him. Even worn down from the battle, Sabok still believed he'd won. The two tried to retreat at once, but the enemy stopped them. He'd only been measuring the technique. He wanted to judge whether it was worthy of being called one of the main orthodox faction's arts. Even if they named it the demon sword, he said it was still just internal energy amplified through a blade. Then both of them froze. He was using the demon sword technique with only his fingers. They were stunned. If they had truly grasped the principle, they'd know it wasn't tied to a sword alone. As he repeated the move, he said he did respect where the art came from. Still, he wanted a better name, something like Divine Subjugation Technique. That meant Yugil-jun, leader of the Black Death Alliance, was using an orthodox art as if it were his own. Worse, his finger technique was even stronger than the demon sword. He said that if the elder brother hadn't burned the last of his internal energy to stop it, neither of them would have survived. Yang Myung realized then that this enemy was truly in the Fire Realm. Getting the leader's attention, he explained that he and his elder brother had come for a reason. They wanted his help for the Great Martial Arts Tournament. The Heavenly Demon Cult had once been strong enough to stand against the 9 major sects and the rest of the martial world. Even through many uprisings, the orthodox side never dared challenge them head-on. Things only started to change when the sect leader's son, Yun Hyuk, appeared. Born with rare talent, he gathered loyal followers and split the cult into factions. He left with his supporters and formed the Bright Sky Demon Cult, weakening the original sect badly. But now their concern was the Black Death Alliance in the south. If that alliance pushed north, then with the clan leader's strength, they believed he could stop that advance. So they begged him to hold back the Black Death Alliance while they destroyed its core, the Celestial Demon. But the Tang clan leader refused. Hyunseo couldn't understand why he wouldn't help, yet all he got was the same refusal. He quickly went back to tell Sabok what the clan leader had said. Sabok could hardly believe they'd been turned down. The leader had only said it wasn't his choice alone, that he would speak with the clan head and answer later. They worried they might fail to persuade him, but for now, all they could do was wait. Hyunseo also said there was something else to discuss. The Tang clan was nothing like they had expected. On the way in, they had seen enough to know the rumors were wrong. The clan's warriors were strong, and the mood inside the clan was nothing like the broken image people talked about. His elder brother said he had noticed it too. Some force seemed to have revived the clan almost at once. He thought they needed to bring that force to their side somehow. Just then, Tang Yuri and her father arrived. They explained that he handled the clan's general affairs and had been ordered to escort the two guests. When they met the current leader, they were surprised to find a woman. She introduced herself as Tang Jai-hai. She said she was the acting leader of the Sichuan Tang clan. The moment they sensed her energy, they understood. She was also in the fire realm. Now it made sense why the Tang clan had recovered. The clan head was powerful, and even the acting leader had reached the fire realm. They explained that their sect urgently needed support to wipe out an evil sect, and asked her to please think it over, but her son had already refused once. She asked if he still felt the same, and he said yes, so they asked why he still rejected it, as if stopping that evil sect was impossible. The leader answered that, from what he knew, the Black Death Alliance didn't torment ordinary people. They took protection fees, yes, but they also wiped out bandits, almost like orthodox groups did. If that was the case, he said, there was no reason to strike them first. He also reminded them that when the Black Death Alliance and the Finger of the Bright Sky Demon attacked and destroyed a Tang clan branch, not one orthodox faction came to help. He said he understood why. They had to protect their own sects first, and he wasn't blaming them. But now those same people were asking for aid in the name of wiping out evil sects. His words hit so hard that neither of them could raise their heads. They talked about justice, but only moved when their own sects were in danger. The elder brother looked like he might lose his temper again, so he forced himself to stay calm and said they were willing to pay a fair price, asking her to reconsider. Yomyung replied that if they meant that, then they could discuss how many forces the Tang clan might send. But first, he wanted to know the price they were prepared to pay. The two visitors left badly shaken. The amount demanded was equal to several years of their sect's upkeep. They said only someone very confident would ask for that much. The clan leader's martial skill was definitely impressive, but it was still hard to judge. He might be at the same level as their enemy, or even higher. Watching them, Yomyung wondered if they had noticed that he had kept his meridians open. He was far sharper than he looked. This wasn't just about squeezing money out of them. His son said the idea hadn't come out of nowhere. They kept talking about the Black Death Alliance like they were the righteous side, but he didn't trust them. Still, it was true that order had held after the major factions fell, and that was because of one man, Yu Gil-jun. He knew the alliance was only called evil because it didn't belong to the orthodox side, but if things shifted even a little, they could crush rivals, plant spies, and bring down other clans or invade them. That peace was only temporary. If Yu Gil-jun disappeared, the evil factions would break loose. His mother agreed. It really was a chance to cut the problem off at the root, then asked what he planned to do. He said it was simple: keep them from moving north. Instead of stopping them from the outside, he would throw them into chaos from within so they couldn't move at all. The idea made sense, but she asked how he planned to reach them. He explained that they had recently sent an invitation. His mother was stunned. They had invited them to a gathering in Sichuan. Unlike before, this gathering would be a tournament for young masters from the evil factions. If his guess was right, they wouldn't give up their evil plans, and that would be when he wiped them out. When Yanjiang reached the Tang clan, she had already decided she must not offend the leader. The future of the main family rested on her. The young woman told him not to worry. The Tang clan leader was an exceptional man, and she was sure she could win him over. Ai-jin was talking with Master T-Hill, who had brought food and medicine. The two orthodox guests asked the young man to come inside. Ai-jin asked whether his internal injuries were getting better. Brightening up, he said his grandfather's medicine had worked extremely well. At first, he'd been scared to drink it because it was made with poisonous herbs and plants, but once he took it, his internal injuries improved fast. At this pace, he said, he would soon be able to return to his sect. He then mentioned that it had been noisy outside all day and asked if something was going on. They said it was probably because Jiggle had returned. That surprised both visitors, since the Tang clan and the Jiggle clan had long been close. This time, they had agreed to build a defensive formation in the outer grounds. Hyanso had heard the two clans were friendly, but a formation like that had to cost a lot. So one of them asked whether the Tang clan was paying for it, and the young man said no. The Jiggle clan was covering everything. According to the clan leader, the Jiggle clan had been very cooperative. The two visitors guessed the patrol must have found some weakness. At the same time, Jiggle and his niece were on their way to see the clan leader, and he was giving her final instructions. She told him not to worry. She knew herself well, and no man could resist her beauty. Her uncle agreed she really did resemble her mother, once known as a great beauty in Hubei. The young woman said winning over a young man wouldn't be hard. Jiggle then remembered how, more than 10 years ago, the Bright Sky Demon Lord attacked their clan and targeted his sister. Her sacrifice had barely saved the main family, but after the shame of being used for one night, she eventually took her own life. Jiggle swore he would not let that kind of tragedy hit the family again. If his niece could form a deep bond with the Tang clan leader, their bloodline could survive. He was placing the family's future on her shoulders. At the door, they were welcomed and told the young leader had been a huge help with the clan's formation during the competition. Jigel was stunned when he saw the acting clan leader. Now she was overseeing a defensive formation across the outer grounds, and as acting leader, she said she was truly thankful. Seeing her, he thought she looked like the clan leader's mother. Same noble blood, same grace. He was so distracted by her presence that he completely lost his train of thought. He quickly apologized for not greeting her sooner, but she brushed it off since he hadn't been there when she took over. She told him the trip must have worn him out and urged him to rest before starting work. Then she turned to the young woman beside him, who introduced herself as his niece and said she came to help bring the two clans closer. When her uncle told her to greet the clan leader, she just stared at him, struck by how handsome he was. After realizing she'd been staring too long, she hurried to introduce herself properly. She greeted them both, apologized for the late introduction, and sincerely congratulated the acting clan leader. The acting leader found her very polite and said she was beautiful. So beautiful that plenty of boys would be heartbroken over her in a few years. She bowed to the girl replied that the acting leader was still very beautiful too, and at first she had thought she was the clan leader's sister. To her, she seemed like a lovely and kind mother, which explained why the leader was so remarkable. The acting leader smiled and said that since she was the same age as her son, she hoped the two would get closer during her stay. The girl said she'd like that, especially since her older brother in the main family never showed her any affection. Then she let a small tear fall, hoping to get a reaction. Instead, she looked over and saw the leader yawning in boredom. Uncle and niece realized her sad little story hadn't moved him at all. Yanjiang found that strange. Boys usually tripped over themselves for her, but his mind was clearly somewhere else. After being ignored, uncle and niece felt they had failed. For the first time, the girl felt humiliated because he barely even noticed her. Then his mother pinched his cheeks and told him to greet the young lady properly. The moment she looked at him, she was sure she'd make him notice her yet. Elsewhere in Sichuan, inside Black Death Alliance territory, rumors about the Tang clan leader were spreading fast. People said he would attend the gathering, and after everything he'd done, the other factions wouldn't stay quiet. In the hall preparing for the gathering, the first page listed the needed budget, and the second named the factions and clans taking part. The Demon Lord felt the report was good enough to present. Ye Xiaoruan spoke like she was only doing her job for the leader. Everyone found it funny, since it seemed he'd been leaving the work behind more often than expected. Right in the middle of the meeting, a child walked in and announced that she wanted to attend the Sichuan gathering this time. She leaped onto her uncle, who asked what changed after she had called it too troublesome before. She said she'd heard the Tang clan leader would be there, and that was why she wanted to go. All the girls in Chengdu were supposedly crazy about him, so just how handsome could he be? She decided that if the rumors were true, she'd make him her husband. Her uncle told her to quit saying things like that before her father heard. Still, he said she could go see for herself, because even if he refused, she'd probably go anyway. After all, who could stop the daughter of the Black Death Alliance leader? Tang Mirio brushed her sister's hair and admired how pretty it looked. She said it was hard to believe her sister had been bedridden for so long. Then she brought up how obvious Yumian had been the last time he visited. She asked what her sister thought of the clan leader, and just hearing his name made her blush. Tang Mirio couldn't help laughing. His name alone made her breathing shaky. Even so, she still worried whether her sister was truly well enough. She asked if the young master would be going to the Sichuan gathering since they might not see him for a long while. After all, it was basically a meeting of dark factions, and she feared it would be dangerous. Tang Mirio teased that it would be a problem if some girl from that side fell for him. Her sister immediately turned gloomy and murmured, "That would be awful." So Tang Mirio suggested they should go to the Sichuan gathering too. Her sister worried the clan leader might not want them there. Mirio grabbed her by the arm and told her not to worry. She already had a plan. Meanwhile, in the leader's office, Jigel's niece asked to go with him as his servant. She said she'd heard the young masters of the dark factions would be competing there. Yumian didn't think that was a problem since he'd already been told he could bring one bodyguard and one servant. Still, he warned her this was not a vacation trip. Then Tang Mirio burst into the young leader's office. Yumian lit up at once, saying he'd felt someone coming. Of course it was her. Cheerfully, he said she and her sister must have something to tell him. Tang Mirio immediately fixed her eyes on Yanjiang, who had already been in the room. Without backing down, she asked who that girl was, and Yanjiang shot the same question right back. Yumian seemed to catch on, and Miss Miso asked what was going on. Tang Mirio said she and her sister wanted to attend the gathering with him. That caught him off guard for a moment. He asked if she meant going as his bodyguard and Miss Miso as his servant. Mirio quickly said that was the perfect arrangement, doing her best to ignore the other girl already there, but Yanjiang quickly picked up on it. They acted like this because they were very close to the clan leader. She also noticed Miss Miso had a special kind of beauty, almost on the level of the clan leader's mother. If a woman like that stayed by his side, Yanjiang knew her own plan could fall apart. The leader said he was glad Mirio wanted to be his bodyguard, but he couldn't take Miss Miso since he already had someone for the servant role. That made Mirio angry, and she snapped that if her sister couldn't go, then she wouldn't go either. So Yumian would have to choose someone else in her place. Her sister tried to calm her, saying it was alright if she couldn't come. Even though she was clearly sad, she told Mirio to go alone. Mirio, upset, said fine. Her sister could stay behind if she wanted, and if the clan leader didn't want her there, they shouldn't force it. Then, wanting a private word, Mirio called the leader aside. She asked why he was being so insensitive when he knew her sister was there listening. Her sister wanted to go, so why stop her? Especially when he had feelings for her. To Mirio, he was pushing away the chance right in front of him. He answered that this wasn't a pleasure trip. It could turn into a battlefield. No one knew what would happen when they clashed with the Dark Faction's young masters, and he didn't want her sister in danger he might not be able to protect her from. If something happened, who would take the blame? They might even run into the Black Death Alliance leader deeper in that territory. And since her sister was still recovering and not fully strong, facing that kind of threat would be too hard. After hearing that, Tang Mirio accepted why he chose someone else instead of her sister. Even so, she declared that if her sister couldn't go, then she wouldn't go either. Jigo was worn out from cramming so much work into such a short time. Then the young master startled him by asking why he was just standing around. Jigo quickly said the defensive formation was done and he was only fixing the last details. Yomyung said he'd handle things right away and checked whether the formation had been set exactly as ordered. He saw that Jigo had built it around the poison hall, through the medical wing, and out to the general affairs office. Jigo insisted all the clan's important points were covered. He added that, just as ordered, everything had been finished on time, then asked if that deadline had really been enough. Yomyung put a hand on his shoulder and told him he clearly could do it when he tried. Now he just needed to finish the rest quickly. Jigo couldn't help thinking a simple thank you would have been nice. Yomyung hoped the clan would stay protected, even if it came under attack while he was away. With that done, he figured only a few loose ends remained, so he called for one of the elders. Standing before Elder Tang Jirong, he said he'd heard the man was skilled with a sword, which was why he'd become an elder. Even the sword hilt he'd shown before had been beyond his reach. Frustrated, he admitted he knew the gap between them. With his current skill, he wasn't even close. That's why he wanted some guidance on how to use the sword. It wouldn't be free, of course. He offered a condition in return for obedience from now on. He added that chances like this didn't come often, so the elder should see it as pure luck and decide whether he was willing to change sides. Meanwhile, Hyunseo and his brother were saying goodbye and thanking them for the hospitality. They also thanked the Tang clan for joining their cause and, on behalf of the Gordong sect, expressed their gratitude. Sebak said their help had completely healed his internal injuries. The acting leader thanked him and said they were sending elders and warriors as well to help. Delighted, Sebayak promised to send payment as soon as he returned to his sect. The acting leader said she hoped all would go well for them. She then thanked the clan leader, saying that without him, both master and disciple would have been in serious trouble. She added that his martial skill was far beyond his age and that he might soon surpass even her. But when she took his hand, she sensed something monstrous inside him. Hyunseo noticed her reaction at once and asked his older brother why his face looked so strange. His face went pale. After saying goodbye to everyone, he said they would head back to their sect. Still, he couldn't tell if he was imagining it or if the clan leader really gave off an overwhelming presence. The Tang clan's rise wasn't only because of the clan leader, but also the youngest young master. Remembering the clan motto, repay kindness twice and evil 10 times over, the leader said that since they had chosen to help, they had to think about everyone's fate. They agreed to fight with all they had and wished them luck in the coming battle. Ijin gave Yongyung the poison case, now filled with elixir. He asked why Yongyung always chose the same poison. Yongyung said it was the one he knew best, and nothing else suited him like his own poison. Then he reminded him everyone was waiting. He didn't have to say it, but he still did. Come back alive. His spiritual guardian suddenly asked if he was really as young as he claimed. Yongyung understood why he was asking such a personal question. It wasn't an overstatement. He had already surpassed many seasoned warriors who had spent decades in the martial world. Even the sword art he used to win over the elder was far beyond the sword masters the Guardian had seen with the invisible guests. Yongyung casually answered that if someone like the Black Death Alliance leader could exist, then someone like him could too. He told him to drop the pointless curiosity. He wasn't even a dragon. As they were getting ready to leave, Mirio called out, asking where Yongyung had gone. He quickly said he had gone to get poison from Ijin. Then Mirio asked who was standing with him. He introduced Zhang Gil, who would guide them to Chengdu and make sure the trip went smoothly. The young master said he was counting on him. After that, he said goodbye to his mother and told her he was already leaving. They gave their final farewells to the clan and prepared to depart. The interim leader told them not to be so formal. She told her son that whatever path he chose, the wind would follow it. She wanted to support him, but warned him not to push himself too hard. After all, he was the son of the poisonous phoenix. She believed he would do well. She prayed everyone would return safely, asked them to watch over the clan leader, and sent them off in peace. Sichuan was packed because of the gathering. and the whole place felt like a festival. Young and Mirio were both surprised by how lively it was, and Mirio said it looked different from before. She had visited a few times back when her father ran the merchant company, and Young said he had heard about that. If the clan kept growing, they would need a merchant company for steady income. They couldn't keep relying on the elders' diverted funds and the medical wing forever. He told her that once everything was over, she should speak with her father about it. He intended to help restart the business. Near the sword forge, the owner was dozing off because no customers had come in. Annoyed, he muttered that business was slow again and hoped someone would finally show up. Then someone called out, saying they hadn't heard any hammering and asking if the shop was even open. Young stepped in and said he wanted to look at swords. The owner brightened at once, saying the young man looked familiar, and happily offered to show him what he had. After checking them, Young saw the swords were well made. The blades were in great shape, and the sharpness stood out. The owner's pride was justified. They were excellent. They were a little plain, but the cutting edge was outstanding. The blacksmith was amazed that Young figured all that out just by handling them a few times. Young said every sword there looked high quality, and he would pick one that fit him best. Excited, the owner told him to wait and hurried off. He returned with a box. Proudly, he asked Young to open it. When Young lifted the lid, he immediately knew it was a true masterpiece. The weapon was called the Demon Slayer Sword, and it really lived up to the name. Even with limited knowledge of swords, Young could tell how incredible it was. The blacksmith explained that his master had started forging it but died of illness, so he had taken over and finished the blade himself. He proudly asked what Young thought, calling it worthy of the title masterpiece. Young felt it was on the same level as the sword from his past life, and he could sense the sharp aura pouring from it. Still, as amazing as it was, he didn't need a sword like that. Instead, he told the blacksmith he should be proud of what he had made. But a blade like this would attract too much attention. A simpler sword suited him better, so he decided to buy the one he had chosen earlier. The blacksmith looked disappointed, but accepted it. Just as they were finishing the sale, a group of troublemakers barged in asking what was going on. The blacksmith nervously called one of them Young Master Yun. The young man complained that he had ordered the best sword and accused the blacksmith of trying to cheat him. He demanded to know how a mere smith dared mock him. The blacksmith quickly tried to explain it was all a misunderstanding. Watching them, Young felt something was off. They looked more like bodyguards than ordinary men. His spiritual guardian agreed. It was demonic energy. He had felt that same presence before with the invisible guest. What he couldn't understand was why demon sect dogs were in Sichuan. The young master ordered Young to move aside so he could punish the blacksmith, warning that if he didn't, he'd be next. Young answered with a strike from 2 fingers, calling him a loudmouthed fool. That single hit was enough to shake the troublemaker. His guards did not like seeing their master treated that way. Young coldly added that someone at his level couldn't use a great sword properly anyway. One bodyguard shouted, asking how he dared touch Namjoon's grandson, the young lord of the Hanyang sect under the Black Death Alliance. But the Tang clan leader couldn't care less about that title. He cut straight to the real question, and asked what ties they had to the demon sect. Then he simply stood there, waiting. Offended, they demanded to know how he dared slander their sect like that. They told their young master to get behind them. They believed they could settle this themselves. After taking down all the bodyguards, he declared that from now on, the Celestial Moon Brigade would take charge of young Master Yun. He ordered the rest to handle the others. The man was shocked, though he admitted the cover had been perfect, and asked how he had noticed them. The answer was simple. The stink of demon sect trash gave them away from far off. He asked the young master if seeing his guards fall still didn't make him feel any danger. Then he told him to worry more about what was in his hand instead of just stuffing it full. To him, those fallen men were all the same. Their leader ordered his men to protect young Master Yun while he taught this fool a lesson. They dragged away the screaming young master. Young noticed that for all his arrogance, the loud brat had no idea who they really were. It never crossed their minds to stop and think. They only knew fear. When they attacked, he slipped past them and broke their swords right after. Some of them were stunned, thinking they had moved faster than him. One thought he had already won and rushed in to finish it. Instead, he dropped to the ground. The others could only stare. The girls were frightened, but they tried not to show it. The young man who had challenged Ferreira looked close to tears. They stared at the scene, one young man holding a sword, the other kneeling before him. After swinging the blade, Young knew it truly was a masterpiece. The balance between the hilt and blade was nearly flawless. The blacksmith had done the work of a real master. Young praised the dead master for creating such a sword, then added that the disciple who finished it was impressive too. Every craftsman hopes a great weapon reaches the right owner, and he felt this sword would one day find its true master. The master's last wish had been clear: only give the sword to someone who truly understood its worth. The blacksmith was thrilled, believing he had finally found the rightful owner of the Demon Slayer sword. Holding it, Young looked at the rest and asked who wanted to try next. They all rushed him at once. That only made him smile a little. This was exactly what he wanted, a chance to train more. By now, the girls were too worn out to be shocked by anything he did. They couldn't even tell when he had learned swordsmanship, and someone muttered that everything was going far too smoothly. He figured those Black Death Alliance idiots had no clue he belonged to the divine celestial demon sect. He believed Yeo So-chung's son had the talent needed to carry the Yun clan line. If he could make the boys show his martial skill at the gathering, that would be the first step to breaking their power. By the time anyone understood, the demonic path would already control Sichuan. Then his subordinates came rushing in, shouting and badly wounded. He found it strange when a brigade member brought in So-chung, reporting that young Master Yun was under attack by a large group. Back at the forge, young Myung was finishing off the last of them and nearly had the place cleared. Mirio wondered who was going to deal with the aftermath. She asked if he was really calm about it, when one of them had clearly run off for reinforcements. He said he had let that man go on purpose. That fool didn't even understand what was really happening inside the demon side. He wasn't truly part of the demon sect and had no clue who those people were. Young Myung lightly rested the sword on his neck and said they would find out soon enough. Once the others arrived, they could ask them directly. Before long, loud shouts told them to let go and move back. The boy's father had arrived with soldiers, yelling for them to release his son. He threatened that if they resisted, he would cut them to pieces and feed them to the pigs. Then another man stepped forward and said he was here. With his sword at their throats, he asked what they really thought they could do. The girls wondered who the real enemy was. There were too many of them, and they couldn't tell what Young Myung was planning. Hyun Sung-nam yelled that he had no idea who he was messing with. Young Myung answered that these were people from the demon cult. He could feel their dark aura, and even if they hid it, they had come to Sichuan to cause trouble. He wasn't sure the Black Death Alliance knew that, but he recognized their hidden demonic energy, and the fact that he came out unharmed after the Celestial Moon Brigade attacked proved enough. Knowing how dangerous he was, the man tried to shut him up. In the Yun clan's name, he ordered the Celestial Moon Brigade to use the reverse blood demon technique. Mirio froze in fear. It was the same technique the Lord of the Bright Heaven demon had used when he attacked the Tang clan. At once they changed and grew far stronger. That was when he realized the Yun clan had ties to the Yun Jung Hung clan. But Haeun Sonam only asked if he was done talking and ready to be wiped out. Yong Mian said he had nothing personal against him. Still, his clan had been destroyed by them. Hearing that, Haeun Sonam laughed and bragged that his brother had ruined countless clans. Then he demanded to know where Yong Mian came from so he could wipe out his whole clan too. Jiggle's niece trembled. Sure, they were all about to die. Even so, she chose to trust the young master, so she ordered the Celestial Moon Brigade to kill him. His spiritual guardian asked what he planned to do now that the enemy was charging in. Yang Mian got annoyed by the question. His answer was simple. He would cut them all down. He set his sword and struck back, staining the ground with blood. Haeun Sonam had thought beating one man would be easy. The blacksmith was horrified. He had never seen power like this. The girls, though, felt relieved they had trusted their leader. The enemy couldn't believe that 70 warriors using the reverse blood demon technique were losing. It brought back a memory from the cult. The time the left guardian of the celestial demon cult and the right guardian were injured after the ceremony to choose the vice leader. That day, the winner was declared to be Yeon Jong-hyuk. The feeling now was just like his brother's martial trial, which had surpassed even the left and right guardians. He hadn't felt pressure like that since then, and now he felt that same force from this man. Once he understood he couldn't win, he dropped to his knees and begged for mercy. He asked him to spare at least So-chong. If one life had to be taken, then let it be his, not the child's. He said whatever grudge Yongmian had against the celestial demon cult, that child was not like them. Still begging, he asked for mercy. Yongmian didn't buy the act and asked if it was normal in the celestial demon cult to kill a blacksmith over a sword they didn't like. The innocent-looking young man opened his mouth, and in the next instant, his head was gone. Yongmian told his father he understood his anger. The families of all the people he had harmed felt that same pain, but he had no plan to spare anyone from the celestial demon cult. He told him to stop talking and go straight to hell. Then Yongmian asked the blacksmith if he truly meant to give him the sword. The blacksmith said that without him, he would already be dead. He should take it as payment for saving him. That way, his master's wish would be fulfilled. The sword had found its true owner. Mirio asked the clan leader why he was hesitating if he was supposed to use it. Yongmian said that if that was what they wanted, he would take it. Still, the sword drew too much attention, so he wanted a plain sheath for it. His spiritual guardian thought that every time he saw him, he was even more amazed. Anyone could call him a sword master and mean it. He knew that once that child fully grew, he would become an even bigger monster than Yong'air. This video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. See you next time.